Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the opening drive on 101 ESPN in St. Louis. We're at 7 o'clock. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Danny Mac, Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker, Brooke Grimsley is out of town for the weekend, so she is not with us, and Brooke will be back with us on Monday. It's 7 o'clock. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler, as we said. Danny Mac, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Randall?
I'm doing well as well. Ready for the weekend?
I am ready for the weekend, and the main reason I am ready for the weekend, it's like Christmas Eve right now.
Oh,
I got a little grid on the docket tomorrow. We got college football back, and I agree with what they were talking about a few moments ago on the morning show. This is week one. This is not just the precursor to week one in the college football season. For me, this is week one.
yeah, it's not week 0. It's week 1.
And we got a pretty good game with Georgia Tech and Florida State. They'll play over in Dublin, Ireland. So looking forward to that, by the way, if you're just wondering out there. Florida State is a 10.5-point favorite. I know you're curious about that, Randall. So I wanted to make sure and hit that up for you.
I am looking closely at that. I'm going to have to grab my FanDuel Sportsbook app and see how I'm going. So that game tomorrow at 11 o'clock St. Louis time. And then you've got I don't know if Mizzou counts as week 0, but next Thursday night, you've got Murray State and Mizzou on the SEC network.
Looking forward to that. Also looking forward to our conversation to talk a little bit about that. The voice of the Tigers at 8:15. Mike Kelly will be our guest. And we'll do that
looking forward to that.
15 after 8 on the Tiger Network.
We have action tomorrow for you, by the way. We've got SMU and Nevada. That's a 6:30 pregame here on 101 ESPN. The other games this weekend, Montana and New Mexico. These are why they call it week 0. Delaware State and Hawaii. So we'll have those games. But, hey, you know what? They all have lines. They all have betting lines.
SMU and Nevada under 57.5. I like that one too, Randall. I'm just saying, for my friends, and you're one of my best friends in the world, I'm just trying to help you a little bit in that regard. So not that I was paying attention to these lines at all, but I just had to give it to you at 7:02 on a Friday morning.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a little disappointed with this week 0 slate. Last year there was like 4 good games, and this one we really just get the one ranked team playing. I'm a little disappointed in this one.
I'm with you.
But
I agree.
In fairness, if you look at the college football slate, there are like 10 weeks where it's just an unbelievable amount of good games all getting played in the same day. So I guess we're trading it off. It's fine.
What happened to the Kickoff Classic, though?
That's what I miss.
Good point.
They had Florida State and LSU, I think, a year ago.
Yeah, that's right. The game that should have gone to overtime, Kelly went for 2, right, at the end of the game. But you've always had Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, a big-time school playing in the Kickoff Classic, and we don't have that this year. I wonder why.
Are you guys as excited about college football this year as you ever have been?
I think I am. And a large part of that is the hopes and dreams that we have for the Mizzou program. But even though I didn't like the realignment, I'm intrigued by it. I love USC being in the Big Ten. I love Oregon being in the Big Ten. I think the competition among great teams is going to be fantastic. And here's the thing. For the really good teams, there's no such thing as an easy path. I think we could have said over the years, last year in the Pac-12, a pretty easy path for Oregon. All they really had to do was get by Utah. Now you've got, if you're Oregon and moving to the Big Ten, you've got a minefield half of your season.
Can you imagine the secondary sports trying now to go from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten? And I'm not talking about football. I'm not talking about basketball, which are major revenue generators, but I'm talking about softball. I'm talking about baseball,
volleyball,
track and field, and the travel schedule that they're going to have. And to supplement that, they need football and they need basketball. But, I mean, for those lesser teams, it's kind of ridiculous.
And one of the things they've talked about specifically for the Big Ten is having the teams just meet in Dallas and play games in Dallas, which I hate. I hate the idea of not being able to see your home team. But here's the thing. How many people are coming out to watch cross country anyway?
Well, I agree. I'm just thinking of the expenses of trying to get
crazy.
to and from. Yeah, it just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No.
But that's what they're going to have to do.
The Cardinals will be back at it tonight. They'll play at Target Field in Minnesota after knocking off the Brewers yesterday 3-0 and taking 2 of 3 from Milwaukee, first place Milwaukee, over the course of the weekend. A lot of people over the course of this last couple of weeks with the social media and even texting us, say, DFA Miles Michaelis. Well, Miles Michaelis went 6 shutout innings. He allowed 2 hits to the Brewers, struck out 3, and walked 1. And Dan, I think one of the things that happens, and everybody wants every player to be great, but there is a place for every player on a roster. Matt Carpenter is a 25th, 26th guy. Brandon Crawford, 25th, 26th guy. Brandon Crawford was probably going to get 100 at-bats this year if he stuck around all year, right? Miles Michaelis is a number 5 starter, and I think we need to look at him that way rather than trying to project every starter on our team as a number 1. Try to look at pitchers as where they should slot into a rotation. Miles Michaelis is a nice pitcher. Is he great? No. Is he a guy that you can count on every single time he takes the mound? No. But is he a guy that gives you representative performances more times than not and can give you a chance to win more times than not? Yeah, and that's what you're looking for. If he makes 32 starts and he makes 17 where he gives you a chance to win 18, that's kind of what you're looking for from a number 5.
And what's interesting is he's not paid as a number 5. I was just going to say that and then popped up on the 314, which is very true. The thing is, if you watched him yesterday, he'll work quickly, which he did, and he'll get a lot of soft contact, which he did. He had a lot of ground ball outs, and I think you would agree, Randy, his stuff is not nearly as sharp as it used to be.
No.
Big hump in the breaking ball, but he can get away with it because he's smart and he can pitch. Now, his ERA going into the start yesterday was around 6.5 since July 1st, but, you know, at times he'll give you the kind of start that you needed yesterday. And we come into the studio, and this morning it's so much different than it was 2 days ago, where you feel like, okay, the team has got a little momentum after taking 2 or 3 against Milwaukee. One of the things I would caution fans about is that they're on the road this weekend, and they're taking on a really good team. Minnesota is sneaky good, and Minnesota is only 2 back of Cleveland. They're tied with the Kansas City Royals in the American League Central, and they have a bullpen that's very good as well. So this is a sneaky team. We'll see if the momentum carries over to this weekend. They got to win. They got to win 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4 the rest of the way. And if they don't do that, they're not going to be in postseason play.
And yesterday, interesting offense. You get a bases-loaded walk from Contreras. You get a fielder's choice grounder from Donovan to give you the 2-0 lead, and then Nolan Arenado with an RBI hit. And that's how the Cardinals scored their 3 runs. If that's how you got to do it, that's how you got to do it. And, hey, they found ways to get those 3 runs on the board.
The key at-bat in the game was the Contreras at-bat. He had fallen behind 0-2 and then drew the walk with the bases loaded. So veterans are supposed to do that kind of thing and not expand their zone. He did not do that. I thought it was one of his best at-bats of the year. Donovan, the little bloop into center, winds up being a force play at second to get Contreras, but then the run scores. That makes it 2-0. And then the big thing for me, when you talk about pitching, not just Miles Michaelis, but Kittredge, Romero, Helsley, just 1 hit in the final 3 innings. And when you get that was kind of the formula at the beginning of the season where you felt really good if you got to the bullpen and those big 3 were ready. And then there was a little break from that because they pitched so much, in my opinion, and maybe wore down a little bit. And then if they have a little rest, which they do right now, they're pretty good, man. They're very good at the back end. You're going to ride them so hard, though, in the final 5 weeks. It's going to be interesting to see how they hold up.
It's hard to imagine that if the Cardinals are winning games, because every time they're winning after the 6th, you're going to see Kittredge, Romero.
Exactly,
Helsley.
Randy. I know where you're going with this.
It's hard to imagine that group could hold up, and this is one of the pitfalls you run into when your starting pitchers just don't give you enough innings.
You know, the guy we don't talk enough about, and he's had, because I think we take him for granted, is Helsley. He's had an unbelievable year. I mean, he's had an unbelievable year, and we don't talk enough about him. I don't think nationwide they talk enough about him.
I agree, and I was thinking about this yesterday because we've had the conversation here. Okay, who do you pay to go watch play for the Cardinals? Helsley's a guy. You know, I used to pay to go watch Bruce Sutter pitch, and he was obviously a Hall of Famer. But this year's Ryan Helsley is worth the price of admission. Now, if you can get to the 9th inning with a lead.
Yeah, there's the rub. Yeah, but I think we all get intrigued with power. Like in our MLB storylines we're going to talk about during the show, I'm enamored watching Aaron Judge. with what he's doing right now. Power, slug, the way that he's able to put the ball in play. And I'm enamored with Ryan Helsley. It is power. It's 101. Sometimes it's 102. He's got a nasty breaking ball. He is really hard to hit. I'm enamored watching him. I stopped to watch him, to your point. Now, maybe it's because the game is on the line, and that's why he's in. So I have more interest to see if they win the game. But still, if he came in the 6th, I'd still sit there and watch him just because of what he brings to the table.
And that's what Jordan Hicks was supposed to be as a closer, and never really, aside from maybe 1 4-month period, never really was consistently that guy that Ryan Helsley is right now.
Do you remember the at-bat against Odubel Herrera of the Phillies? And he hit 105 on the gun.
Yeah.
Now, that was one of the at-bats I'll never forget in my lifetime, because there's a guy that I've never seen throw 105 miles an hour with sink. I actually felt bad for the catcher. I was like, he's going to get a sinker down, and it's going to break his thumb. I actually thought that. And that's the thing. We're enamored with power, but I guess the only time we talk about a closer is when they blow it.
Right.
And so, he's doing his job, and he did it again yesterday.
Yeah, and the thing that pitchers can do now with that natural sink, with that velocity, is pretty incredible.
It is.
The fact that the ball is at that speed that it's natural sink. It's not necessarily a sinker. That's just their pitch.
Yeah. Your cardboard cutout during 2020, the COVID season, I got it front row seats and the green seats for you.
Yeah,
so
it was awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I was going to ask you, have you ever sat in the green seats and watched live, not your cardboard, but live, watch it from behind home plate? It is amazing to see the movement and the speed at which these guys can react at the plate. I don't know how they hit it. It's amazing.
It's incredible. And I've seen Hicks from back there. When you talk about natural sink, whoop,
yeah,
that was most mortals would not have a chance in those scenarios.
I don't think I could put the bat on the ball.
No.
Now, I would square around a bunt and just say, can I get a piece of this? And there's not a chance I'd be able to do it.
And here's the thing. We started this conversation by talking about Miles Michaelis' stuff not being what it used to be. There have been 23,000 Major League players in history in 150 years. You would fill half of Busch Stadium with the number of people that have donned a Major League uniform. And then half of those have been pitchers. A guy like Miles Michaelis is awesome.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking to the rest of the world, he's incredible.
Diminished stuff, finds a way to get outs.
Right. But to think that we say his stuff isn't what it used to be, and it's not. But if you get behind home plate and I would venture that most of us could try to step in against Miles Michaelis and would not have a chance.
Not a chance. And you'd be buckling and bailing on a curveball that looks like it's coming at your head or your shoulder. And you'd sit there and say, how in the hell am I going to hit this guy? And somehow they find a way to do it. But I'm looking at this, Randy, from going back to the Cardinals. The winning formula for them is some combination of Kittredge, Romero, and Helsley. So if you can get any starting pitching like they got yesterday to get to the quote-unquote big three, they do have a chance to win. But to your point and what we said earlier, can they hold up for 5 weeks? And look, you wake up this morning, you got a little hope because you're thinking the wild card. At least that's the way I look at it. And I've been saying that. I don't even look at the division. I look at the wild card, and there's a lot of teams to jump. There's a lot of teams, as Greg mentioned yesterday, that could falter, like the Atlanta Braves, who are dealing with a lot of injuries. But other teams have risen. And so this weekend is big against Minnesota. And then you got the San Diego Padres. And that is maybe the biggest series of the year.
And the Cardinals still, they've won 2 in a row now. But it's been since June 24th since they've won more than 2 in a row. So we're going to be at a month tomorrow. Hopefully the Cardinals can start a 3-game winning streak. But the only way you're going to get back into this is by having an extended winning streak, or a couple of extended winning streaks.
I was thinking about this on the way in, and you have to have Sonny Gray be the guy that you signed. He's got to be the guy every 5th day that goes out, and you have a legitimate chance to win. He puts you in the position to win these games, and he's got to step up. He's got to be better than he has been here the last month.
Yep. Tonight, Andre Palante will go for the Cardinals. He went 7 innings against the Dodgers his last time out, and he will be opposed by Minnesota's David Festa, and that's a 7-10 game, 6-10 tomorrow, and then I think 1-10 on Sunday for the Cards and the Twins.
Apple TV tonight, too. So
that's right.
If you're curious about where to watch the game, it's Apple TV. I don't know about you, but Palante's got to be in my rotation next year.
Yeah, my rotation, and this is what I'm looking at realistically. This is not my dream scenario. It's not what I hope happens. But I think that you're going to start next year with a rotation that has Gray, Fetty, Palante, Michaelis, and probably Matz.
You think so with Matz?
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday. I think part of that is because you can control payroll. For instance, if you wanted to slash a lot of the payroll for next year, you sit there and say goodbye to Paul Goldschmidt, and you're going to say goodbye to some other players that would add up to about $40 to $50 million, and that's a way to slash some payroll.
If you don't pick up the options for Gibson and Lynn, you've already let Crawford go. Carpenter probably goes. I would think that's. And then you just replace them all with rookies. If you're the Cardinals, and yesterday again the smallest crowd, they set another record for the smallest crowd in the history of New Busch Stadium. Revenue's going down, and revenue's not going to go up with payroll's not going to go up with revenue going down. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And then there's the Bally situation as well, and so I would think that. You're looking at a pretty substantial payroll slash here for the Cardinals in 2025.
If they would come out and say to the fans, we're going with a youth movement, I think fans would be accepting that. I mean, they want to see some winning. Don't get me wrong. That's number one. But I think if they said, we're coming out, we're going to give these young guys a chance to see what they can do, build towards maybe the year after that or the year after that one with some of the pitching that they have coming through, and then supplement that with free agents and just be upfront and honest about it, I think fans would accept that. I do.
I would feel better about it, though, if the Cardinals would bring in somebody with a history of development of young players. I don't feel with this group and the way they develop young players, I don't feel really good about their ability to have a youth movement. I need the players to be better when they get here and to get better as major leaguers.
And sustain.
Yep.
Nolan Gorman yesterday with 3 strikeouts last night for Memphis, and Jordan Walker went 3 for 4. Go back to the Jordan Walker thing. I wanted to see him play every day, but I see what they're trying to do, and some people believe there's a disconnect between Ollie and Mo because of the comments that were made last Sunday. But I think we have to look at it this way, Randy, is that Walker was brought up to be a platoon against left-handed pitching, and I just didn't agree with that. I thought he needed to play every day.
It's interesting to talk to people within the organization, too, because they agree that if Jordan Walker doesn't become a superstar, the organization's kind of screwed because they don't have another superstar on the horizon here, and they aren't going to buy a superstar.
Randy, that was the key this year.
Yeah, it was.
He had to play.
Yeah.
Goldie had to be Goldie. Arenado, who's been better in the month of August, needed to be Arenado. And that was the core of this team offensively, and it just didn't work out.
Yep. The NFL preseason got underway week 3. Bengals fall to the Colts 27-14. Bears over the Chiefs 34-21. And St. Louis City SC back in action tomorrow night as they take on the Portland Timbers at Portland. Our buddy Jay Delsing joins us next here on 101 ESPN. Bradley leads the BMW Championship after one round. We head to the celebrity line now, and our friend Jay Delsing of Golf with Jay Delsing and Danny Mac on Sundays joins us. Jay, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you doing?
Everything's good. Did not see Keegan Bradley. I didn't have that one on my bingo card after one round.
No, we were looking at this the other day, Randy. There was only one player in the 50 that are playing there that have ever played a tournament at Castle Pines, and it was Adam Scott. And so it was really going to be interesting to watch the guys deal with the altitude, because especially some of the younger guys, they just don't see it that much. So that golf course is 1,000 feet above Denver in terms of sea level. So it's over 6,000 feet above sea level. And man, that ball can go some crazy, crazy distances this week.
So we talking like 400 yards, things like that?
Well, I actually did hit one 400-yard drive, but I think it must have hit a couple sprinkler heads. But, there's so many ups and downs, you guys, that we were talking about this on the show, or we're going to talk about this on the show on Sunday, where, you get your hole location sheets, and that thing turns into be your scratch pad. There's so much math. I mean, this week the caddies are under the gun. You get your yardage, and then you take off a certain percentage for just being in Colorado, and then you've got an uphill and a downhill and into the wind. And yeah, man, it's like, just give me a 4-iron. Let me see what the heck happens here.
Is there an adjustment period for that? Obviously, you play practice rounds, but with the yardage being so dramatically different, is that part of the process, is trying to adjust to how far the ball is flying?
Oh, Randy, definitely. And you know what else, guys? It is dependent on the time of day and the temperature, because as it gets hotter, and it'll get hotter in August there, the ball goes probably an extra 5% further. You'll tee off in the mornings, and it's up in the mountains, and it'll be in the 70s, and then by the time you get to the back nine, it'll be close to 85, 90, and your ball definitely goes further. There's almost a cheat sheet out for that stuff now, guys, because there's just so much money on the line that nobody's taking anything for granted anymore, or anything that they're not leaving anything just out there without being heavily considered.
The PGA Tour did not want to go head-to-head with football, and I understand that. Football is a behemoth, and normally in the past we would have the PGA Championship in August. But a simple question, Jay, when you go from 70 to 50 players, and then they'll have the championship at Eastlake next week, so they've got a playoff format. Is this good for the game of golf, and do you like it?
Oh, man. Is it good for – it would be great for me if I was playing in it. I would really, really like it. For the game of golf, I think it's okay. I just miss having not having the PGA Championship in August. I liked the years spread out a little more. I get not going up against football, but man, I always look forward to that last major and then the playoffs. So I don't know if it's just my age, Danny, and I'm an old fuddy-duddy now, but I kind of like the old way. I almost prefer not having to wrap around. Like, I liked at the end of the year was over, and then, you got a couple weeks off. Nowadays, there's, they play Eastlake, they take 1 week off, and then they turn around and start playing out on the West Coast, and it's a wraparound. So I kind of liked it better when it was strictly on the calendar year. And, guys, I mean, what would you think if the tour took, 4 weeks off and there wasn't any golf? I mean, would that bother you? Would it make you want to watch more? Would it kind of stoke your interest a little more? That's kind of the question.
Yeah, I miss it.
I would miss it too.
I would really miss it.
I'm with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd. I like it. I like it every single day. So, one of the things that the PGA Tour mission statement is to provide playing opportunities for professional golfers. I mean, that is the mission statement. So the fact that they, try to fill the calendar up, especially for someone like me, I was never one of the top players. I look forward to another event to play in. It was another opportunity to try to make some money and keep the girls, all of this crazy stuff the girls have going on afloat. Got to keep that boat afloat over there.
Yeah. Hey, who do you guys have on the show coming up on Sunday?
We have that, and Randy, you got to get yourself an orange whip. I don't know if you.
I have an orange whip.
It's the best, isn't it? So we have the creator of the Orange Whip. His name is Jim Hackenberg, and he's a great guy, loves the game. And we also have Jim Nantz on the show. So we got to visit with Jim Nantz, which is, just like, it makes you feel like you're just back in the rocking chair. You're just sitting around. Everything seems good with the world when you get to hear Jim Nantz's voice.
Hello, friends.
Exactly.
We'll be tuned in. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Have a great day, guys.
You too, Jay. Jay Delsing with us on 101 ESPN. Coming up, St. Louis City SC back in action in MLS action tomorrow night as they visit the Portland Timbers. And we're going to talk to MLS season pass analyst Miguel Gallardo next on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals walk away with a series victory over the Brewers, 2 games out of 3 with a 3-0 victory yesterday afternoon. They'll try to build their first 3-game winning streak in almost 2 months later on tonight, facing off against the Minnesota Twins. It is on Apple TV, again, 7:10 first pitch. It'll be Andre Palante facing off against David Festa for the Twins. Festa on the season is 2-2 with a 4.96 ERA through just 32 2/3 innings pitched so far this year. And St. Louis City is back in action tomorrow night. They face off against the Portland Timbers as they start the final 9-game stretch of the MLS season. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
With Dan McLaughlin, I'm Randy Karraker. It's the opening drive on 101 ESPN. Brooke Grimsley is out today. She'll be back with us on Monday. St. Louis City SC is back in MLS action tomorrow night as they visit the Portland Timbers, 9:30 St. Louis time on MLS Season Pass. And MLS Season Pass analyst Miguel Gallardo, kind enough to join us on the Celebrity Line this morning here on 101 ESPN. Miguel, thanks so much for the time. How are you?
I'm doing well, absolutely. I'm excited to get the MLS season back going. Leagues Cup has been fun. We'll see what happens in the final between Columbus Crew and LAFC, but there's going to be a lot of action on Saturday before that match.
What have you thought of the reaction of fans to and media to Leagues Cup?
Yeah, I think it's been good. Obviously, the first year of Leagues Cup was unprecedented, with Messi arriving and absolutely capturing all the media. Not just by what he represents to the football community, but what he actually did on the pitch, scoring bangers every single match. And you thought, no, he cannot do it again. And then there he did it again and was able to take Miami to a championship very, very quickly. The standard was very, very high, and it was going to be difficult to replicate that, especially when he was not able to take action. That being said, obviously the big story is that MLS teams dominating versus Mexican teams, and it's been a big disappointment for Mexican teams. Of course, there are a lot of things to evaluate when it comes to the format, them traveling, and just different aspects. But at the end of the day, for some of them who are clubs that expect to win regardless of the situations, it's going to be a big failure. So I'm interested to see how it's going to be evaluated and what sort of changes they're going to make to the format, which I am encouraged by the fact that they evaluate things and they're not afraid to change things. So I'm looking forward to what happens next year, but I do think that the two best teams in terms of personnel, in terms of style, in terms of moment are going to be playing the final.
Miguel, John Hackworth has said on this particular show that he thinks they will need to win 7 out of these last 9 games. Is that a reasonable expectation when you factor in all the additions from the transfer window?
Well, I think from the outside looking in, it's going to be a difficult task. But I think the fact that he's sending that message to his players is the least that you can do, right? You have to instill some sort of belief, and they have to play every match as if it's the final. They're in a tough situation, but they're not too far away from a playing spot, which is about 10 points. I think Minnesota United is in that situation at the moment. You'd have to believe that some of those teams are going to continue to struggle. And the good thing for St. Louis City is that the reinforcements have done a really good job right away. I really like what they've done. And what better way to solidify or maybe get encouragement of the fact that you've done a good job with reinforcements when they all score in the same game to help you beat Portland Timbers, right? So I thought that was really exciting. It's got to be really encouraging.
As St. Louis City SC gets ready for tomorrow night, how difficult is it when you get these new players to develop a level of chemistry and to get everybody on the same page?
Yeah, it's always difficult, especially because they all come from different soccer styles, and it's never an easy thing, especially coming into a team that's going through a transition. I still don't know what St. Louis City wants to be. I know that they still want to be this, pressing team, high energy, play for second balls, winning duels. But I think that there's been a little bit of an uncertainty as to how they want to continue to evolve. And I think the result of that was the change of coaching, right? It is always difficult for me. I'm curious to see how the new players are going to take the responsibility of where they are right now. Are they going to come in and be like, you know what, this isn't our mess. We didn't cause this. We're coming in. Our expectation is to do a good job, but do they feel the weight? Do they feel the pressure and the responsibility to turn things around for this franchise that is so young but already experienced so much success in the first season? So there is expectation of St. Louis City SC making it into the playoff because of what they've done last year. I'm interested to see how these new players take that on, because I do think that they have the quality, them individually, but also some of the players that are not taking the action right now, right? They have some injuries like Klaus, like Pompeo, like Alm. I think they're really good pieces that if they get it together, I think they can make a run and sneak into the playing round. And then, once you get to the party, anything can happen.
Miguel, to follow up on the new players, City has seemingly solved their offensive issues. Do you think, though, the trade of Parker for Kessler will be enough to give City a defensive jolt it needs as well?
Yeah, if I'm honest, I don't think that's going to be enough. I think that's where they're going to be weak, to be honest. St. Louis, they're going to have to rely on their attacking players to score a few goals, because I do think that they're going to continue to concede goals, even though you have a top-level goalkeeper in Berkey. I look at that back line, and I'm thinking, there is some I don't know that there's top-level quality, certainly experience, to be able to withstand the attacks of players like, this weekend, like Cabecita, like Mora, like Anthony. That's going to be, for me, the biggest challenge. They have to make some improvements there. But we'll see. Listen, when you score goals, just like Portland Timbers, they're weak defensively as well, but they score a ton of goals and they win games that way. It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Hey, Miguel, one more thing from me, and you mentioned Roman Berkey. As a person who played goal, what is your impression of him? Is he a guy that can carry a defense?
I think he's fantastic. Honestly, I think he's very complete. He's good on the ball at his feet, which I think is something that's rare in Major League Soccer. He's a obviously experienced goalkeeper playing in the Bundesliga, but his technical ability is far, greater than most goalkeepers in Major League Soccer. His leadership, I think, is terrific. That being said, he's not Superman, and you can only say what's humanly possible. And a lot of times he's been hung out to dry this season. So I think he can make big plays in big moments, but you cannot rely on him making save after save to be able to get results. That's just impossible. Every now and then, okay, but if you're relying on your goalkeeper to get to earn 3 points or salvage a draw, I think that's the wrong mentality and the wrong expectation.
If you could, educate our fans just a little bit. Tim Parker came out, and this is my final question, expressed some issues with how City dealt with his contract negotiations and then ultimately was traded away. Is this kind of typical with what happens in MLS, or are these mistakes of a young club, in your opinion?
I think there's always two sides to every story, right? The club wants to make sure that they get the best deal for the club, because no player is bigger than the club, and the player always wants to get the best deal for themselves. I'm sure that if you sat on the table and both parties expressed how they were looking at the situation, why they handled things the way they handle, they would both have arguments. Now, the best clubs, for me, are the ones that, always treat players in a way that when they leave the club, they have nothing but praise for the club. That's not to say that St. Louis didn't handle it the right way, but sometimes we speak out of emotions because in that particular moment we feel some type of way. That's why they say, that's why you get the best sound bites out of players right after games, because that's when the emotions are high. For me, that I coach youth soccer, we have a 24-hour rule for parents not to call the coach or the director, because when emotions are high, sometimes you say things that you don't want to say. But I certainly think that there are two sides to every story, and it is a shame that Tim Parker feels that way, because I do think he's a great player. That being said, I don't think he's a player that is irreplaceable in a team. I think he's seen his better days. He's a terrific player, and I think he's going to do great in this next club. But I think St. Louis can upgrade there for sure.
Miguel Gallardo, we will be tuned in to MLS Season Pass, and we love your analysis. Thanks so much for taking some time with us today, and have a great weekend.
Absolutely. You too, guys. Thank you.
You got it. Miguel Gallardo from MLS Season Pass. He is one of the great analysts, and St. Louis City SC back in action tomorrow at Portland, 9:30 will be that action on Apple TV Plus and the MLS Season Pass.
And
7 of 9? Man, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, and because the MLS is restarting and they want to get those eyes back on it, you can watch the games for free this weekend.
Ooh,
awesome.
Yeah. And by the way, the Cardinals on Apple tonight too. So it's an Apple weekend for St. Louis sports fans.
I think it upsets people. Baseball on Apple TV.
Yeah, it's not great.
No, people can't find it. Then they have to subscribe.
And I'm going to help you out here, Danny. Because the game is free, you actually don't need the app. You can just go to tv.apple.com.
For the soccer game.
Yes, for the soccer game.
Yeah,
you can just go to tv.apple.com and you can watch the soccer game for free without actually getting on the app or anything like that if that's something that bothers you.
All right. Coming up next here on 101 ESPN, we've got Take It or Leave It. Get your text into the Air Comfort Service text line, 314-399.
Yo-ho.
9646.
I'm out now.
314-399. Yo-ho.
Oh, Matthew.
There.
Coming in. Hot.
Take It or Leave It next on 101 ESPN.
Time for Take It or Leave It.
Want to say something? Want to put it out there. If you like it, you can take it. If you don't, send it right back.
Get your text into 314-399-9646 and give us your take it or leave it.
Brought to you by Gloria Lou Realty. Visit GloriaHasTheBuyers.com and start packing.
That's my final offer. Take it or leave it.
Danny Mac, Matthew Rocchio, Randy Karraker, the opening drive, 101 ESPN in St. Louis. Our text line is open, 314-399-9646, 314-399-YO-HO. There we go. Yeah, a little bit. Dan, did you see that Pete Carroll's going back to USC to be a teacher?
I did see that.
And then Lincoln Riley, their head coach, said, we would be crazy not to utilize Pete Carroll in the football side of things. Take it or leave it. Even with the transfer portal and NIL being the Wild West, Pete Carroll can get USC in trouble.
Somehow, some way. Yeah, I'll take that. Man, would he be perfect for NIL?
Perfect.
His players had NIL before NIL was around.
Yeah, Reggie Bush had a house. Well, his parents had a house.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think he'd be perfect for it.
Yeah.
And how do you not bring in a voice like that and a guy that knows the area so well, obviously in Southern California, and can go get players? You got to bring him in.
No doubt about it. I would think that, and Lincoln Riley saying it publicly tells me that Pete Carroll will be somehow involved with that program.
Have you been watching Aaron Judge very closely? I got an amazing stat for him. He's slugging .722 this year. The rest of the league has an OPS of .713. So he has been above that. .852 in his last 90 games, his slugging percentage. The last to do that was Barry Bonds. 48 home runs, and it's August 23rd. Take it or leave it. We're just not paying enough attention to the greatness right now of Aaron Judge in the game of baseball. We talk about always having these different faces of the game. Aaron Judge is the face of baseball right now.
I will 100% take that. He is. He's a Yankee doing what he's doing. And in the history of the sport, and this goes all the way back to the 1776, there's only been, in the history of the game, 38 players that have had a better slugging percentage in a season that Aaron Judge has right
It's
now.
incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And he will be the MVP. I think you can make a case for Bobby Witt Jr., and he's having a great year. But the Yankees have a game-and-a-half lead over the Orioles right now. Could wind up with the best record in baseball. I would say Aaron Judge has to be the MVP, and it'll be, I don't know if it'll be unanimous, but it's going to be darn close. Just because, and he plays in New York. He's going to have that aspect of this, too.
Yeah. And by the way, slugging it's an interesting stat. If you ever just go to the baseball reference page for slugging single season, it's Bonds and Ruth, and that's about it. I think Babe Ruth has 10 of the top 62 all-time slugging seasons.
10?
Yeah, 10. I believe it's 10 of the top. Let me check where he is in the 60s. I think it was 10 of the top 64.
People ask
Babe Ruth.
Hey, people ask me the best hitter I've ever seen. Right-handed hitter, Albert. Left-handed, I don't care about the steroid stuff. It's Barry Bonds.
It's Bonds, yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah, he's outrageous. He was outrageously good. You couldn't throw him a strike. If you threw him a strike, he'd hit it out of the ballpark.
Exactly. He'd hit a rope somewhere.
Yeah. All right,
Matthew's giggling.
Yeah, what do you got for us, sir?
Because this is one of my favorite take it or leave it's ever. Take it or leave it. Your new favorite stat is that Deion Sanders is tied with Lee Corso on the all-time interceptions list at Florida State. And he's correct. They both had 14 career interceptions at Florida State.
I love that statistic.
That's my new. That is unbelievable.
Lee's getting a little bit older for the show, to say the least.
Yeah.
Do you get a little uncomfortable watching him sometimes?
I do, because I'm worried about him passing away on set.
Or saying something that may not be proper for air?
And they have done a really good job in bringing in Pat McAfee to be his replacement. I don't know if he wants to do it or not, but I think I would hope somebody would retire me when I get to that point. Let me put it that way.
You're close.
I know.
I don't think that's going to come out of your mouth.
Oh, no.
So you're going to be here for another 20 years?
I don't know about that. I do know that. No. 20 years ain't happening.
You don't want to do it for 20 more years?
No. I'll be too old then.
No, you won't.
You don't want an 82-year-old guy doing sports talk radio. It's a young man's game.
Not at all. Well, then I'm out too. And there's a lot of fans saying, okay, good.
God, your dad joke. You will have granddad jokes at that level. I'll be so excited to hear your comedy at that level. Oh, my God. I mean, the manager might not be, but I will be.
Oh, the filter will be off.
Take it or leave it. More youth teams should adopt Miguel Gallardo's 24-hour rule with parents and coaches.
I agree. Yeah, take that.
That's a fantastic.
I think City, and I'm not positive about this, but when the kids travel, the parents can go to the games, but they have to be in like a separate hotel room, and they're not allowed to talk to the coach. I think that's a good thing. Did you ever read the Matheny Manifesto?
I was just going to bring that up. I was talking to a hockey mom about that last night, and I thought that Mike Matheny had the right idea with the Matheny Manifesto.
I think it's right. I mean, you let the guys coach and gals coach and stay out of the way. Just stay out. I mean, if you're that good of a player when you get to be in, let's say, a freshman in high school, that's kind of big boy stuff, big girl stuff. You know, you start having cuts, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah. And your kids played sports. You hear parents. My kids played sports. I hear parents. And apparently it's different and even more pronounced now, the talking and the helping of coaching by parents in the stands.
That's part of it. And you wouldn't believe how umpires and referees get abused.
Oh, yeah.
There was a game that I went to with my son, and he was playing. This is probably 4 years ago, which would have made him, he was probably 9 or 10. And the referee stopped the game in the middle of the game. He just said, that's it. I'm done taking the abuse of the fans and the parents. I'm out. He just quit in the middle of the game.
And your brother was a longtime high school football official.
Yes.
Who, by the way, nobody was ever going to accost in a parking lot.
No, he didn't get any trouble.
No, but there are...
He's 6'6" and about 290 pounds.
Yeah, right.
So let's make sure and describe this.
Yeah, right. But there are, and this is unbelievable to me, there have been so many officials that have been accosted in parking lots by parents that so many of them have quit. That's why we have to have Thursday night football games, because there aren't enough officials to do Friday and Saturday, so they have to spread it out over three days. And by the way, if you do have interest in officiating, you should get in touch with the St. Louis Officials Association. But man, it's terrible what these, especially the veteran older officials, have to deal with.
I was watching Hard Knocks the other day. I found it really interesting. Caleb Williams was in a QB meeting, and they went through the officials and the referee for that game and said, hey, this guy likes this. This is where he's from. So if you get in a conversation with him, not to butter him up, but just have an understanding of what he looks for. Here's his tendencies, all those things. And in baseball, they do that too.
Smart.
I would have a really good 1 month career as an official before they had to fire me because I matched the anger level of a parent.
Oh yeah.
You couldn't handle it, man.
I'd have a good month run, and then it would just be viral video of umpire screams for 25 minutes at parents who heckled him for 2 minutes. I would go, oh, you're here? I'm gonna go up here. Meet me here.
I wonder what
you get a little short fuse. What you're saying?
I'd fly off the handle.
I wonder what those parents think. Do you think they think that the officials have money on a high school football game or
I don't
baseball game or something?
I don't get it.
No, they just think that they think that they can just pick on that person. And again, I kind of want to do the job just to have that one parent and ruin their Saturday morning. Just one time, it'd be worth it. Take it or leave it. If they made pumpkin spice Reese's things, Randy would be all over them.
I'd try them. I don't know that I would, and they probably will come out with them soon. I don't think that I would be all over them, but I would certainly try them. My son is the pumpkin spice enthusiast in my family.
Are there variations of the carrot cake that you make?
No, there are not.
Okay, just straight up carrot cake, and this is what you get.
Right.
Okay.
I could throw some pumpkin spice in there at some point. I could give that a shot.
What about throwing chocolate chips in there or something like that?
You want me to try that?
I do.
Okay, that's a good idea. By the way, Michelle texted me and asked if I heard her shout out, Michelle Smallman, on national radio this morning, providing a Randy Karraker carrot cake shout out. So I'm very thrilled. I got to find this.
You got to send it up north then.
I do, yeah.
Go to New York and send your carrot cake.
I think this has to happen, no doubt about it.
Take it or leave it. Carson Steele is going to be the steal of the draft for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm going to add one to this, a second take it or leave it. He's going to be Kerry Davis's new favorite player.
I'm going to leave it, but I do think that the Chiefs might have the steal of the draft in Xavier Worthy. Yeah,
that's who I like.
Good.
If you guys saw last night, Carson Steele was the fullback for the Chiefs, and he was running the ball for him last night. And anytime you're handing the ball off to a fullback wearing 42,
that's a good
I'm
thing.
immediately a fan. I'm immediately a fan.
Yeah. Mike Martz still talks about the hammer, James Hodgins, and Brandon Manu Maliuna, the H-backs that he had.
No love for James Hodgins?
Oh, the hammer. That's James the Hammer Hodgins, yeah.
Who was I thinking of? Yeah, he was that one in 99. Okay. Take it or leave it. Matthew Liberatore is a bullpen guy for the rest of his career.
I'm going to take that.
That's a good question. I think I'm going to take that too, because I think he's traveled already quickly the Andrew Miller path. Andrew Miller, remember, started out as a starter, didn't get much traction there.
He's with Detroit.
Yep. Yeah.
Didn't work
Miami.
in Florida, too.
Yep. And so I don't think that Liberatore will be given the ability to gain the traction as a starter.
How about the fact, though, if they don't bring back, well, we said there's 4 spots that we think could be impacted already with the rotation that you have this year. Maybe Steven Matz would be a 5th guy. But if you get creative and you move on from one of these guys, do you go into spring training again and say Matthew Liberatore is competing for a starter's job? I could see that happening. But I think he's best served in the bullpen, and that's where we've seen his success. The fact that he can air it out. He's throwing 95, 96. He has a great breaking ball. He's getting in now on right-handers with a fastball sometimes. So, to me, by the fact that he can air it out, and the numbers bear it out from when he's a starter to where he's a reliever, it's just he's a different pitcher.
And it depends on what you do from a development standpoint, because the Cardinals, I would say that's been the biggest issue is developing starting pitching. I mean, look at their starting rotation now. Palante's the only guy from the organization that's there. But if you do put yourself in a situation where you're comfortable with developing young players, I would have everybody. I would have Liberatore, McGreevy, Zach Thompson, Hentz, Quinn Matthews. I would have everybody prepared to be a starter next year, and I would open it up for competition, because I love Steven Matz as a guy. I think he's a great guy, and I hope he does well, but I just assume that he's going to be hurt.
You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you not? He's missing major parts of seasons. It's not like he just goes on the IL and comes back.
Right.
This is months and months and months of seasons that he's missing.
And I think we'll see him in September as a starter, and I think we'll see him next spring as a member of the Cardinals vying for a starting job in the rotation.
I think you have to see what you have in Steven Matz, too, when he comes back. And the numbers haven't been great in the minor leagues, but those are minor league rehab assignments. You take it with a grain of salt. But to see him back in the majors and what he can do, I'm interested in watching that, and it could factor into what you do in the offseason.
Can we rewind really quick? When you incepted me by saying Hodgkins, I was going to say the name I was going to say was, of course, Robert Holcomb.
Number
you said
25.
Hodgkins, and I was like Hodgins, and I was like, oh, an H name, and I just literally repeated it right back. Robert Holcomb is who I was thinking of for some reason.
And Holcomb was not a hammer. Robert he was drafted as a tailback, gained like 25 pounds to become a fullback, and was a really nice Larry Centers type fullback, but all the touches were taken on that offense, so he didn't have much opportunity.
Oh, really? Take it or leave it. The Cardinals go for a youth rebuild. Bloom takes over, and Nolan Gorman's the home run leader by the end of next year.
I'm going to leave that on all fronts.
Yeah, they aren't going to do the rebuild. I could see them.
How about a retool?
Yeah, I would think a retool would be more
I'm with
realistic.
you on that one.
I could see Mo stepping away. I don't see Mo getting fired. I could see Mo stepping away and leaving the job of his own volition. And I could see, after a search, I could see Chaim Bloom as the Pobo, but I don't think that that's a fait accompli. I think the Cardinals, they haven't done a search for a manager, really, since Joe Torre.
Outside the organization.
Yeah. And because Matheny was locked in once Tony retired, right?
Yeah.
And Schilt was locked in, and Ollie was locked in. So they really haven't searched for a manager. Torre was locked in, too. What are we talking about? So Whitey was like, boy, we have to go.
Red.
Yeah. We have to go, maybe Vern Rapp. I don't know. You have to go back a ways to find a real legitimate managerial search. But the Cardinals did do a legitimate managerial search when they promoted Mo. The Cleveland, now the president of baseball operations, was the other finalist with Mo. And a lot of people thought he was going to get the job, but he wound up, obviously, Mo wound up getting the job. Chris Antonetti, yeah. He was the other finalist with Mo back in 2007, 2008. That's Dan. I'm Randy, and thanks very much for your text. Thank you, Matthew. Coming up next, how would you feel if the Cardinals let Paul Goldschmidt walk away and he succeeded somewhere else? That's next on 101 ESPN. 5 in St. Louis. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. The voice of the Missouri Tigers, Mike Kelly, St. Louis Sports Hall of Famer, Missouri Sports Hall of Famer, joining us coming up in about 10 minutes. A couple of notes for you from yesterday's Memphis game. Both Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman played their first games back with Memphis. J-Dub 3 for 4 with a couple of RBIs, and Nolan Gorman 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. So he's in midseason form already for Memphis.
Man, that's not good, and they need to get that swing going because he is such, we were talking about it earlier. You had to have Walker do his thing, what you thought he might do in the major leagues this year, and couple that with Goldschmidt, couple that with Arenado. Don't overlook Nolan Gorman. I mean, you were anticipating 25, 30 homers for him, and here we are right before September, and he's in the minor leagues. Not good.
No. And Zach Thompson last night goes 3 2/3, allows 5 runs on 6 hits. All the runs were earned, struck out 4 and walked 2. Zach Thompson just having a devil of a time down in Memphis.
Didn't see that happening. I thought he'd be a factor, and that's somebody we're talking about too, Randy, with these young guys that have a chance to compete next year in the rotation. That would be one of them, but the way he's pitching, it doesn't seem, that would be a long shot at this point.
I would agree with that. Dan, if the Cardinals continue to draw poorly, which I think that's going to happen for the rest of the season, and the Bally situation continues to unfold, and there's another hearing about Bally later in this month, in the next 10 days, they're probably going to slash payroll. And you and I have talked about this off the air, but there's a strong likelihood that Goldschmidt, Lynn, and Gibson, along with Matt Carpenter and already Brandon Crawford, would be allowed to walk. Probably a $50 million slash to the payroll. There is strong belief within people in the organization that Paul Goldschmidt has not completely lost it. They've got some faith. But if the Cardinals would allow Paul Goldschmidt to walk in cost-cutting moves, and he would go somewhere else. Let me just throw a number out there for you. 22 homers, 95 RBIs, and an 810 OPS for Paul Goldschmidt. I don't think that would bother me if the Cardinals let him walk, as long as they're giving their young kids a chance to play. How would you feel if he went somewhere else and performed well?
First of all, I question, why is he having success somewhere else?
Well, we do that with every player that leaves.
That's what I mean. I mean, you sit there and say, why didn't it happen in St. Louis? I don't know if I see that happening, Randy, because he'll be 37. And going back and look at some numbers since the All-Star, I've talked a lot about this, since the All-Star break of September of 22, actually. He's had the 18th most at-bats, plate appearances in that time. His on-base percentage isn't on the list of the top 50 of 110 major leaguers. His average 250 is not in the top 70. His slugging percentage is down. This may be just a trend, and I don't know if he'll ever get back to the numbers that we saw when he won the MVP. I think what's going to be interesting is that the Cardinals will probably let him hit the open market so that they don't have to match what they're paying him this year in terms of the percentage that you'd have to bring back a veteran player at over, I think you'd only slash it by 20% of what he's making.
Get him to about $21 million.
Yeah. And so I think the DeWitts pay for legacy. I think we saw that when they brought back Albert, caught lightning in a bottle. At the end of Yadi's career, you weren't going to let him go anywhere. Certainly with Adam Wainwright, that's a good case of paying for legacy. And I think it's important because he's on the cusp of being a Hall of Famer, talking about Goldschmidt. And I know he wants to play beyond this year, that they pay for legacy. So it wouldn't surprise me, and it may upset some fans, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if he winds up in St. Louis.
There are 24 first basemen in Major League Baseball this year that have enough at-bats to qualify for a batting title. He is last in OPS in that group, 24th out of 24.
573. I'd feel the same way I felt when we all watched Marp hit dinger after dinger for the Yankees. He doesn't fit in our lineup anymore, yet I enjoyed watching him resurrect his career elsewhere.
That's a good comp. The one team that I was thinking about that has an ability, although they didn't show with Jose Abreu, is Houston, because Goldie is from Houston. He could go down to that ballpark and hit some into the Crawford boxes, and they're very good at coaching and getting players resurrected. I just think Houston would be an interesting fit, and I know Jim Crane would probably like to take a little jab at the Cardinals too.
I think the other place that I'd look at is Arizona, and I wouldn't look at him as just being a single DH. If I'm a team, I'm looking at what he brings defensively too, and we saw that yesterday with Burleson. There was a ball that he could have picked, did not. You're going to take a step back in a big way with Goldie not being
doubt.
at first base. He is a great, and I mean a great defensive player. So he does some little things that maybe don't show up in the box score, but that's one of the checks in the box of bringing him back is that, man, he is a hell of a defensive player. And that's now, but he's getting paid to put up numbers. Right. I get that, but that's one of the intangibles that he brings to the table.
And I thought about Arizona too, but Christian Walker's a better defensive first baseman now, more recent Gold Glove winner, and he's fourth in Major League Baseball among first basemen in OPS. So I think they're very happy with Christian Walker.
Here's the other guy, too, that I think about in St. Louis. Are you comfortable with Burleson being at first base? Do you give Brendan Donovan a little bit of a run? And we talk about him again, but Jordan Walker going to first base.
Jordan Walker has to be on your team in your lineup next year. He has to be an everyday player because he's the only guy with that capability to be that middle of the lineup guy. With all due respect to what Burleson has done, Walker is the only guy, well, he's the only guy that can be a really good hitter and hit a bunch of home runs. He can hit 35 home runs and he can hit 300 and he can have an 875 OPS. I don't think that Nolan Gorman is going to be that guy in terms of the batting average and getting on base. I don't think Burleson's going to be that guy in terms of hitting 35 home runs. I think Jordan Walker's the only guy that on this among the group of young players, they've got a lot of good young players. I think he's the only superstar in the group.
314, if the rest of the team could hit, it would totally be worth keeping Goldie for his D. He's great first baseman. He would have to bat 7th or 8th in the lineup. I agree with that. He's going to have to drop down in the lineup. Unless he gets on fire, then you move him up to the middle.
And unfortunately for him, I believe there are a lot of good hitters on this team that just aren't hitting well. Whether it's instruction or approach, whatever it is, there's talented hitters on this team that have actually done it. But they aren't doing it now, and there's got to be a reason for that. That's what the Cardinals need to analyze most is why aren't our young guys ascending?
That's the number one question.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk so much about Goldie and winding up somewhere else. But if your young kids don't hit, then this conversation is a moot point anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going anywhere.
And by the way, it's happened with veteran players too. Look at Marcell Ozuna's last year here and compare that to what he's done in Atlanta.
He's carried Atlanta.
Yeah. Veteran hitters seem to get better when they leave here too. So there's got to be a reason for it.
And that's what I was talking about at the start of this. If he goes somewhere, and you posed the question, if he goes somewhere else and has success, then it's a true evaluation of what is going on here. Mm-hmm. Younger players, I can understand at times because they're younger players. You know, one guy's 22, the other one's 23. You've had some players leave, but they were young. But if you have a veteran guy, and maybe it's because he's turning 37 and he's on the backside of his career, but if you have an older guy that is not producing and then all of a sudden goes somewhere else and produces, that is a real problem, and that needs to be evaluated within your organization. And I'm sure they're doing that right now, Randy, as we talk about it all the time, every single morning. Why aren't these guys hitting? They're probably wondering the same thing. Why has this been a problem for this team? And they have to be looking at that. There are a lot of players, or a lot of people here on the text line. It's interesting. They want to see Goldie come back, and I thought it would be the other way, where they'd say, get rid of him, don't want to watch him anymore, cut bait. But there's a lot of people that would love to see him come back, which I find is interesting.
By the way, one other note here. Contreras, Burleson, Wynn, and Arenado are the 4 Cardinals this year that have a higher OPS than Paul DeJong, who also, by the way, would lead the Cardinals in home runs. He'd be tied with Burleson.
And he's been great for Kansas City.
Fantastic.
It's been one of the best
almost
pickups.
Like a 900 OPS for them. So it's more than just a few guys. It's a lot of players that have departed St. Louis and, for whatever reason, gotten better elsewhere. That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up, Mizzou starts next week against Murray State, the Mizzou football season, and their most anticipated season ever. Mike Kelly, the voice of the Tigers, joins us next on 101 ESPN. Dan McLaughlin, Randy Karraker, Brooke Grimsley is out for the weekend, and we're handling the opening drive on 101 ESPN. And a great friend of both of ours, Michael Kelly, is standing by. Mike is the voice of the Missouri Tigers on the Tiger Network, and we'll have the call next Thursday night as Mizzou takes on Murray State in their 2024 season opener. Michael, good morning. How you doing?
Where did the summer go?
It went by in a hurry, didn't it?
It did. Unless you were a Cardinals fan, then it was an extended misery this summer.
Yeah, it's been a pretty long summer, and I think it might be a long September for us here.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Good to hear you, boys.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Let's start with this, because you've been doing Mizzou. How long have you been the voice of the Tigers now? Since '89?
Well, I started doing Tiger Talk in '89, so when we begin things, Tuesday night, that'll be my start of my 35th season. This will be the start of my 31st season doing football. I started doing basketball in '91, '92. So okay. There you go.
Have you experienced the level of anticipation for Mizzou football ever that you're experiencing now?
I had a sit down yesterday with Laird Veach, who is, first of all, a dear friend and a terrific hire on the part of the Board of Curators and Moon Choi, Missouri's new director of athletics. We sat down in his office yesterday, and I think he framed it perfectly. This is perhaps the most anticipated football season in Mizzou history.
Mike, it's Dan. It's not sports on a Sunday, so you can treat me nice on the air. I just want to let you know that. I'm anticipating you treat me very well for any dumb questions that I may ask. Why do you think it's so anticipated? Like, what gets you excited outside of some of the obvious things? What makes you so excited about this season?
Well, first of all, back to the sports on a Sunday morning.
Here we go.
As I recall, it was always Mike trying to find time in Dan's calendar on Sunday mornings to actually tape our little 7-minute vignette. But
I was thinking more when I was your producer.
Oh.
Yeah.
I treated you warmly.
You did. You were the best. Yeah. I'm just giving you trouble.
Okay, it might have been the other person.
That's what I just told Randy. So why is this such an exciting season? What do you see?
Well, first of all, you return the majority of your offense after a 11-win season, particularly with a first-team All-American selection in the preseason in Luther Burden, a quarterback who threw for more than 3,000 yards a year ago, a rebuilt offensive line, and you're coming off of Missouri's first win over a national name in a bowl game since going back to the 60s, when Mizzou beat Alabama. I think it was on a bowl game. But, so coming off the Ohio State win, if you look at a Missouri fan, no matter where they are in the state, they've had a perpetual smile on their face since Mizzou knocked off the Buckeyes in Dallas. And then just, again, looking at a favorable schedule in most people's eyes, although I would say don't sleep on several teams on that schedule that you're not thinking about, like a Boston College coached by a guy that's won a national championship as an assistant, won a Super Bowl as an assistant. I also look at, what Gus Malzahn has done, or not Gus Malzahn, excuse me, what's going on at Auburn. I just think that this is a year that there's a path for Missouri. Now you have to take care of business, but I think that's what creates the anticipation, is that there is a path if you do so, and if you did like you did a year ago, Dan, in that when you had opportunities to have a springboard and build momentum after a win, you did so, whether that be 61-yard field goal against Kansas State or 4th and 17 against Florida. So that's partially, and then again, just the thing that gets me geared up is just listening to the fans and being around fans, and going back to a very disappointing basketball season. People coming up, wait till football. So there's just a great deal of excitement in the air. Now Missouri fans have got to do the next thing, and that is to sell out Furrow Field on Thursday night and give Mizzou a 6th consecutive home sellout.
Mike, with all the excitement about the offense, the defense loses arguably your best defensive lineman, first-round pick, right? And Darius Robinson, best linebacker in Hopper, 2 drafted cornerbacks. Now you bring in Toriano Pride, who's a very nice player. But what's your confidence level in this program, and it is a program now, being able to replace those very good defensive players that departed?
I think they did a terrific job, Randy, in the offseason in going out and getting guys that are plug-and-play guys. A year ago, one of the biggest questions that Eli Drinkwitz had about his defensive ends is, are they twitchy enough? Do they have enough athletic ability to attack the quarterback? You saw as the season progressed, particularly with Johnny Walker Jr., the Cotton Bowl MVP, that he had the ability to get after the quarterback. Zion Young, who's transferred in from Michigan State, is a guy that is going to be fun for Missouri fans to watch this year. High motor guy, long, athletic, has made just a number of plays during the course of camp. And I've had a chance to see the majority of the practices from start to finish during the course of training camp. Chris McClellan at the defensive tackle position, 6'3", 320-pound kid from Tulsa that can run, that started a number of games a year ago for the Florida Gators, can walk right in and I think assume that interior tackle position next to Christian Williams. Tristan Newsome is a guy that started in the bowl a year ago against Ohio State and has just gotten better as he's continued to mature. And then in the secondary, again, you mentioned Toriano Pride. Another kid that's had a terrific camp is a young guy from Cahokia, Illinois. Nicholas Deloach has played really, really well during the course of the preseason. So the maturity of Marvin Burks Jr. coming in and being one of those starting safeties next to Joseph Charleston, I just think that they did a really good job in the offseason of really identifying need and going out in the portal and getting guys that can play right away. And, there's depth at defensive end, at defensive tackle, at linebacker, cornerback, and at safety. Now, you lost a very key piece, a kid that was going to be a disruptive force this year in Darius Smith, who unfortunately went down back on August the 13th with an ACL injury. But there's depth with Joe Moore Jr., the St. Louis kid, Joe Moore III. There's also depth with, Eddie Kelly, who transferred in from Georgia Tech. And I think my point regarding depth can be underscored like this. You have a 5-star freshman who's on the scout team in Williams-Winneri.
Wow.
So there's an opportunity for him to continue to mature through practicing with the scout team because there's older, veteran, more mature players in front of him.
Mike, you mentioned you've been at the majority of practices. You can imagine the excitement with Brady Cook and Luther Burden. How have those two looked?
Very good. Yeah, very good. I mean, keep this in mind, too, about Missouri's offense. Mizzou had 248 receptions a year ago. The Tigers returned 226 of those. So you're only trying to replace 22 receptions from Cody Schrader. Now, you have to also replace his productivity as a running back with, more than 1,600 yards rushing. But Marcus Carroll and Nate Noel have stepped in and I think have done a very, very good job in camp. But, Brady was terrific a year ago. He had 21 touchdown passes. He did have 6 picks, and obviously fans remember a couple of those against Georgia and against LSU, but he completed 66% of his passes. And as Eli Drinkwitz said, and I think there was a piece in the paper this morning, be a guy that consistently distribute the football and be a guy that can make plays with his legs. And Brady Cook certainly will do that.
Mike, you mentioned the 2 running backs. Is the offense going to be similar? It's hard to find a running back that does what Cody Schrader did. Will we see a similar setup offensively?
I think we will, Randy. And keep this in mind. Since Eli Drinkwitz got to Missouri, Larry Roundtree rushed for 972 yards. Tyler Beatty ran for 1,600 yards, and Cody Schrader ran for 1,627 yards. So under Coach Drink, he's proven the ability to not only run the football but develop running backs with Curtis Looper as running backs coach. And so, you look at Carroll, the transfer from Georgia State. He ran for 1,350 yards and 13 touchdowns last year at Georgia State. Nate Noel, in his career at Appalachian State, ran for more than 3,000 yards in 44 games. Then you add to the mix, the St. Louis native Jamal Roberts, who played a little bit last year, but has had a really good camp. DeVorce Jones, who's now a junior in the program. I think they've got depth at that position.
Mike, what do you think the SEC is going to look like and feel like with no Nick Saban on the sidelines for Alabama?
I think that they hired a great coach in Kalen DeBoer. I don't think they'll miss a beat. I really don't. I think time and time again we figured out that in sport everybody's replaceable, and I think Nick Saban will be a terrific addition to game day. But I think Alabama has proven its commitment. I mean, when you go out and make the decision that you need to keep your general manager, and that's what all teams are now creating, the general manager to not only manage your roster but manage the portal, manage NIL. And they bumped his salary from $500,000 to $825,000 because he was getting recruited by USC. I think it speaks volumes to the commitment that they have in Tuscaloosa.
I like the idea of not having Georgia on the schedule this year.
It's going to be weird, Randy, not having Georgia on the schedule. It's going to be
Florida, right?
A little bit. Yeah, not having Florida on the schedule, not having Tennessee on the schedule. It's just going to be a little bit different. But getting the chance to revisit an old friend at Oklahoma and see the Sooners come to Columbia, getting a chance to see my buddy Joe Castiglione. It's going to be different, but it's still going to be fun. It's going to be a heck of a year, and again, Missouri has sold most of its, I think all of its season tickets basically are very close to calling a sellout with the season tickets. They've sold more student tickets than they have in the past, and now it's just those other tickets to fill in the stadium, and hopefully again Missouri can do so on Thursday night and sell out the stadium for the Murray State game.
1-800-CAT-PAWS, right?
1-800-CAT-PAWS or MUTigers.com. And by the way, something Dan would enjoy is there's a 4-ticket unlimited amount of hot dogs special, Dan.
Count me in, but I know the right people to call when I want a ticket. That means you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember my number? I can't. I'm not sure.
It's funny. My phone rings and I haven't seen Mike Kelly pop up. So yeah, it works both ways, brother. I do want to ask you this though. You were talking about ticket. How far away are they from a sellout against Murray State? We've been trying to push tickets and get fans to go down there and support the program. Just how far away are they from selling that out?
I think it's less than 20,000. So, if you're going to the lake, why not come to Columbia first? On your way on your way down to the lake this weekend or wherever you may be heading. I think this program, which again, Missouri fans have been yearning for. A program that's consistently, winning, and certainly Eli Drinkwitz has built a foundation to continue to do that. I think they deserve the opportunity to continue to play before sellouts.
And Mike, you'll be here in town with the Mizzou Tiger Club on September 3rd over at Llewellyn's Pub, and you'll be talking Tiger football with everybody over there at lunchtime. So we're looking forward to that, and people can get reservations. Just go to reservations at MizzouTigerClubSTL.com. I'll stop by. I would love to see you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you. My friend Wes Edwards reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in doing so. I said, yeah, I haven't had that opportunity in a while. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Hey, if we'll text, I'm sure, before the game next week, but have a great 2024 season. Hope it's the best ever for you at Missouri.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
That is Michael Patrick Kelly. He is the voice of the Tigers on the Tiger Network. Coming up, we've got the fight, and we've got a returning fighter, so we don't need to get a fighter. We've got the fight coming up next on 101 ESPN. Going to enjoy some Fenton Bar and Grill for lunch today on Rudder Road in Fenton, just 2 minutes away from the soccer park. If you want to have the best wings you'll ever have, then head to the Fenton Bar and Grill. You can see what they have on the menu at fentonbarandgrill.com. But not only is the food sensational, the trashed wings are the best you'll ever have. They have wonderful burgers and wraps and sandwiches, but they also have a great crew. It's called Dive with a Vibe, and at the Fenton Bar and Grill, you'll be treated to great service by the feisty redhead Kelly and Megan and Casey. The whole group there is a lot of fun, and you'll enjoy them. And when Mizzou season starts, they're all about Mizzou football. You'll have a great time stopping by the Fenton Bar and Grill next Thursday night for Mizzou and Murray State. And if you want to watch a college football game, just stop by. They've got TVs all over the place, and they'll find your game, and you'll have a great time at the Fenton Bar and Grill. Learn more at fentonbarandgrill.com. Find them on Facebook. You can check out their specials there. And when you go, tell them Randy sent you. You're going to have a great time with great food and great people at the Fenton Bar and Grill.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals win their series against the Brewers with yesterday afternoon's 3-0 victory. Miles Michaels with a great start, 6 innings pitched, just 2 hits allowed, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. Then Kittredge, Romero, and Helsley finish it off. Cardinals will try to win their 3rd game in a row for the first time in almost 2 months as they face off against the Twins tonight on Apple TV. Plus 7:10 first pitch. Andre Palante faces off against David Festa. Also on Apple TV will be St. Louis City SC. They're back in action against the Portland Timbers on Saturday night at 9:30. That game is free on Apple TV. You can watch that at tv.apple.com. That is your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
8:39 in St. Louis, the opening drive, and away we go with the fight. Randy Karraker will face on Carson because Carson won yesterday and joins us on 101 ESPN. Carson, good morning. How are things going?
Things are going well. How are you doing today, Danny?
I'm doing well. I got to ask you, and I always ask the returning fighter, are you nervous here in day two? And secondarily, a lot of family and friends listening now that you've already won one round?
Yeah, I made it a little public that, I took down Megamind yesterday. Not super nervous. Ready for the challenge today.
Did your family and friends actually believe you that you beat Randy?
No, they didn't. I had to pull up the video proof.
All right, here we go with question one. On this day in Cardinals history, August 23rd, 1999, Rick Ankiel made his Major League debut with his first career start. He struck out 6, allowed 3 earned in a no decision against which National League East team? Was it the Montreal Expos, the Atlanta Braves, or the Florida Marlins?
Go with the Atlanta Braves.
Final answer?
Yes, sir.
Roquez, question 2.
Carson, in that special 2013 season for the Cardinals where everyone hit with runners in scoring position, no one crossed the 100 RBI mark, with the season leader for the Cardinals finishing with 97. Who led the Cardinals in RBIs that year? Was that Alan Craig, Matt Holliday, or Carlos Beltran?
We're going to go with Alan Craig here.
Final answer, Carson?
Yes, sir.
Question 3. Mariano Rivera is one of 2 players in the history of Major League Baseball to tally 9 different seasons with 40 or more saves. Who is the other closer to do it? Was it Craig Kimbrell, Francisco Rodriguez, or Trevor Hoffman?
Trevor Hoffman.
Final answer?
Yes, sir.
All right, and when founded in 1936, the Cleveland Rams chose their name based on the owner's favorite college football team. Which current A-10 school did he rip the Rams from? Was that Rhode Island, VCU, or Fordham?
Fordham.
All right, how you feeling about how you did today, Carson?
Not too bad, not too bad.
All right. Any of the questions jump out to you a little bit as you're a little uneasy about?
I wasn't born for a couple of the questions, but fourth question felt pretty good about.
Yeah, and fair point. A lot of people weren't born. Not a lot of people kicking around in 36 aren't really doing too well right now. So I don't feel that bad about that one. Sorry. Yeah. You felt pretty good about that one. You did pretty well. Randy, say hello to Carson.
Carson, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Randy. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for listening. Thanks for playing. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Rando, are you ready for question 1?
I am ready, sir.
On this day in Cardinals history, August 23rd, 1999, Rick Ankiel made his Major League debut with his first career start. Struck out 6, allowed 3 earned in a no decision against which NL East team?
What was the date here, Daniel?
It was August 23rd, 1999.
I'm going to go with the Montreal Expos. It seems like he had a start against the Expos to start his career. I'm going to go with that.
Final answer?
Yeah, National League East team, 1990. Yeah, I will go with the Expos, yeah.
On to question 2.
My apologies to the YouTube that Randy's camera didn't turn on apparently when I turned on his mic. My apologies. But now you're on, Randy.
Okay, thank you.
You can touch the camera and everything.
Appreciate it.
Randy, in that special 2013 season where everyone hit with runners in scoring position, no one crossed the 100 RBI mark, with the season leader finishing with 97. Who was the Cardinals' season leader in RBIs that year?
This is the magical 2013 season.
Yes, sir. The regular season, of course.
I think there's only 2 real possibilities here. Holiday and Craig. And I'm going to go with Alan Craig. How about that?
You're not really thinking through it. You're just kind of fire names?
No, those are the only 2, I think. I don't think Beltran. He got hurt in the World Series. That kind of bummed me out. But I don't think he was even... I think he was in the 80s. So I'm going to go with Alan Craig.
All right. Mariano Rivera is one of 2 players in the history of Major League Baseball to tally 9 different seasons with 40 or more saves. Who is the other closer to do that?
Well, the only other guy with 600 is Trevor Hoffman. That would 9 times 4, 18. That'll get you to 360. But it doesn't seem like he had a ton of those. So I'm going to go with the lifeline here, Daniel.
Craig Kimbrell, Francisco Rodriguez,
K-Rod.
Trevor Hoffman.
Oh, Trevor Hoffman's on the list. Well, K-Rod had that monstrous year where he had the 62 or whatever. Kimbrell has been pretty consistent and has had a long career, and for many years was regarded as the best closer. But I'm going to go with, probably against my better judgment, I'm going to go with K-Rod.
Final answer?
Yes, sir.
On to question 4. Matthew?
When founded in 1936, the Cleveland Rams chose their name based on the owner's favorite college football team. Which current A-10 school did he rip the Rams from?
Vince Lombardi. Right? You had the 7 blocks of granite. You had Fordham. The Fordham Rams.
Final answer, Randall?
Yeah, I'll go with the Fordham Rams.
All right.
Thought I might be able to get you on that one. We, for the second time in a row, have to go to a tiebreaker. Carson, you learned the rules yesterday, and you played well, so let's go through it again for anybody listening. I'm going to read out the question. We're going to give Randy Karraker a moment to write down his answer. Once Randy Karraker has written down his answer, we will get Carson's answer audibly. Randy Karraker will confirm his answer, and then we will roll on to whoever is the winner with the closest to the pin. Carson, do you understand those rules again?
Yes, sir.
All right, Randy, you ready to go?
Ready.
How many career starts as a pitcher did Rick Ankiel make in his career? How many career games did Rick Ankiel start as a pitcher in his career?
Does this include playoffs or just regular season?
Just regular season starts. My apologies. How many regular season pitching starts did Rick Ankiel make in his career? How many regular season pitching starts did Rick Ankiel make in his career? We have a guess from Randy Karraker. Carson, what is your guess, sir?
137.
All right, Randy, what is your guess, sir?
My guess is 36.
All right, we have a winner. In today's fight, does Carson roll on to a Hall of Fame opportunity, or does Randy Karraker stop him going into the weekend? Ring that bell.
The winner and still champion of the fight, Randy Karraker.
The fight is presented by Golf Discount of St. Louis. With the most experienced club fitters in town. Why shop anywhere else?
I'm sorry, Carson. Randy Karraker took you down today. Rick Ankiel, of course, a little bit of a shortened season as a pitcher, made just 41 career starts, appeared in just over 50 games total as a pitcher, but 41 career starts for Rick Ankiel. You did great here, Carson. You got 3 correct and forced Randy the tiebreaker, but unfortunately, Megamind gets you there on the tiebreaker and walks away with a win today.
Well played, Randy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Carson. Great run.
Let's go through those questions because you both got 3 correct. It was, in fact, the Montreal Expos, the first team that Rick Ankiel faced in his MLB career in his first career start. They would go on to lose that game after with his no decision. In that special 2013 season, it was, in fact, Alan Craig who led the Cardinals with 97 RBIs, the top of the Cardinals RBIs list in that season. Craig with 97, Matt Holliday with 94. Then you drop 10 to Carlos Beltran with 84, Yadier Molina with 80, and Marp finished with 78. Mariano Rivera is one of 2 players in MLB history to tally 9 different seasons with 40-plus saves. It's him and Trevor Hoffman with 9, and then you drop all the way down to 6, where K-Rod is tied for number 2 with a couple other names. And when founded in 1936, the Cleveland Rams chose their name based on the owner's favorite college football team. It is a current A-10 school. There are 3 of them in the A-10 with the Rams nickname, Rhode Island, VCU, and the winner for today's trivia question, it was, in fact, Fordham, and you were 100% correct. Vince Lombardi was a star at Fordham, and the Cleveland Rams owner was a big fan of his, and so a 3-3 tie led us to the Rick Ankiel question. Again, a win today for Randy. Carson, thank you so much for joining the fight and joining the show the last few days.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Carson. Appreciate you, and have a great weekend. Next up, we're going to talk some Blues. Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider from The Athletic, is in studio with us next on 101 ESPN.
news, notes, and nuggets. It's time for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford. Brought to you by Scott Lee Heating Company, a proud Mitsubishi Electric Elite contractor.
Normally, hockey writers don't get much of an opportunity to find good content in the month of August. That's different for people that are covering the Blues, like our Blues insider, the best in the business, Jeremy Rutherford from The Athletic, who joins us in studio. Hi, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I was I think 3 weeks ago, I said, gosh, I really need something to write about. So I text Army. I go, is there any way you could do a couple offer sheets, Edmonton, these two guys, just kind of throwing it out there? And he said, man, that's a great idea. And so he did.
Acquiesced.
Gave me something to write about. Yeah.
What do you think? We'll just start with the moves. What do you think in a general sense?
I like it. I mean, I love it. It's first of all, it shows that the Blues are trying to be aggressive. We've seen that from Doug Armstrong for years. This was really creative, I thought. I really learned a lot talking to Broberg's agent the other day of, how Doug Armstrong presented this idea to the two agents, both Broberg's agent and Holloway's agent, and they knew that they could put Edmonton in a bind. And so now you bring in two players. I was just talking to some guys down the hallway at the TMA studio, Doug Vaughn asking about these players. Look, they're 22 and they're 23 years old. So you might look at them and say they haven't put up big numbers or done much in the NHL at this point. But I think, 22 and 23 with them being first-round picks and the projection that they have, I can totally see why the Blues think these guys are going to be good players.
I see a comp game-wise to Matthias Ekholm. Have you heard any NHL comps for Broberg?
No, other than the people who watch him in Edmonton, Randy, say that he skates like Jay Bouwmeester and skates out of trouble. And so that's the thing. When we listened to Broberg the other day, guys, he said that he likes to join the rush, and anybody you talk to says he's good in his defensive zone. I think that's what the Blues need. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have those guys that jump up ice and have the big shot or can create some offense. But I think if the Blues have a 23-year-old who can play top pair, second pair, left side, who's 6'4", 212, and play there for the next 8 or 10 years. That's a great player to have.
Did this catch the league by storm? Because you just don't hear many moves like this.
Yeah, I think so. And you know what? I was thinking about this last night. People say, okay, so when did Doug Armstrong contrive this, put this together? Remember, it was late June at the NHL draft. I was out there in Vegas when he traded that second-round pick away. So if you're thinking about offer sheeting one guy, let alone two guys, you're not giving away your second-round pick. So this might have been on their radar that they could offer sheet guys, but he certainly wouldn't have been giving away that second-round pick that he had to go back and get from Pittsburgh to make this all happen. So, we said when this happened that Doug Armstrong told everyone, I'll exhaust all my options, and if offer sheet's out there, I'll do it. So I think it shouldn't surprise us from that standpoint. But I think to do it the way he did it, and execute it, pull it all out, was just magnificent, and I think caught everybody by surprise.
And it's hard for young defensemen. Heck, we watched Chris Pronger grow up and turn into an elite player, not comparing them, but we had to watch Chris go through the process. It's not an event for defensemen in the NHL. And Broberg, and we had Coach Bannister on the other day, there's still some growing there to do. He's not a finished product.
100%. And he didn't really get the chance until the playoffs to really show it. Like, you talked to his agent, Darren Ferris, the other day. He said that he had to go to Ken Holland and say, look, send him to the minors. I just want him to play. He just wants to play. So he went to Bakersfield and lit it up, and then came back and got the opportunity to play in the playoffs and played pretty well. So that's the thing. You talked to Chris Pronger about that. I'm sure both of you guys have. It just takes so long, not only to, show that you can compete at this level, but also have the confidence. And I think that's what Chris talks about is, he needed the confidence. And once it comes together, and we've seen it with so many Blues defensemen over the years, it doesn't happen until 24, 25.
Yeah, Petro, right? Yeah. Great example.
Exactly.
Take us behind the scenes. How did this all unfold?
Well, I think that, listening to Doug the other day, they looked at these two players as two guys that they remember from the draft. That's the thing. It's funny. You talk to a lot of these GMs when they go acquire a player in a trade, and they tell you, well, yeah, 4 years ago in his draft year, this is a player that we really like, but we weren't in a spot to pick him. So they paid attention to him. They paid attention to the fact that they were RFAs and the fact that Edmonton was in a bind cap-wise, Danny, and they just said, let's go do it. And I think when you see Doug Armstrong, he went back and got that second-round pick that I was just talking about from Pittsburgh. He had to lose a higher draft pick in that to make that all happen. So I think that shows you that he felt pretty confident that this was going to be finalized and they were going to be able to get these players. Otherwise, he doesn't give up that draft pick. So, you have to bite your nails for about a week and wonder what Edmonton's going to do. I was on that call with Stan Bowman the other day, and I think when a lot of us saw Edmonton making some trades, it looked like they were trying to free up some cap space. But in fact, they had already made their decision that they were going to not match the players. So it took about a week, and let me tell you, I took my laptop everywhere. I think I took it to a couple youth softball games, probably took it in the bathroom, set it down alongside of me just in case that story broke. But Edmonton used up all 7 days.
And can you explain to us how the younger agent, and that was Holloway's agent, right? How he got brought into the mix here?
Yeah, so that's Blake Robson. That's Holloway's agent, and I was pretty surprised that Darren Ferris, Broberg's agent, was so open about those conversations and that dialogue. So what happened is Dylan Holloway's agent only represents 2 players in the National Hockey League, Dylan and then another guy who plays for Nashville, and actually he's in the American Hockey League. And so he doesn't have a lot of expertise in this area. So he was reaching out to Broberg's agent and asking him, hey, how are you handling this situation with Edmonton? And so he was giving him some counsel on kind of how to handle that situation. That's when Army calls Broberg's agent and says, hey, how about we try to do double offer sheet here? And he said, as a matter of fact, I'm talking to Holloway's agent. Why don't I just call him and ask him what he thinks? And so I think it took some convincing. I don't think Dylan Holloway was on board right away to do an offer sheet. He's in a great situation with Edmonton, but eventually they got to a point where they figured out that this could work as long as they both did it, and that's when the agent and both Holloway got on board.
How does this adjust the lines as you take a look at that, and then also some of the pairings defensively and what happens as you look forward to training camp?
Yeah, let's look at the forward lines for a moment. And now let's keep in mind the Blues have 14 players forwards on one-way contracts. That does not include 3 guys. This does not include Jake Neighbors. He's on a 2-way deal, but he'll be here, right? Bolduc could be here. And then also Dalibor Dvorsky. So you're talking, 16 guys, 17 guys who could have a chance to make this team. But, when you do these lines, I'm just going to be up front here and say I have Pavel Buchnevich as the second line center. Do I agree with that? Do I think that's where he's best suited? Probably not, but they might have to. And you guys had Drew Bannister on, yesterday? And he said that's a possibility. We'll see when we get to camp. By the way, I was interested. As soon as you asked him the question, I had to turn the radio up to hear his answer there. Yeah. So he says that, Buchnevich might be in the middle. I think if you do that, you probably go Jake Neighbors, Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou is a potential for one line. Brandon Saad, Pavel Buchnevich, Braden Shen. Now, you look at that, I always, agree with Chris Kerber. He always makes the point that if you have Brandon Saad on your third line, left side, that's probably showing that you've got some good lines and you're pretty deep. But I just don't see a situation where you can push Saad down with the personnel that the Blues have. Then I go Dylan Holloway, Radek Faksa, and I got Toropchenko on the right side now on that third line. Maybe a Matthew Joseph could play on that line. He's definitely capable. He showed it in Ottawa. And then that fourth line, I have Joseph, Sundqvist, and Texier. Each of those guys could play third line, but I think that just shows the Blues' depth there. And then right now, Dan, I have Kasperi Kapanen and Nathan Walker, Nadub, as the extras. And there could be a situation where they're sending guys on one-way contracts to the American Hockey League. And then defensively, real quick, I don't think too much changes. Nick Leddy, Colton Parayko is going to be that top pair, I would think. And then I have Broberg in Torrey Krug's spot on the second pairing with Justin Falk. And then you have a situation third pair. Who's going to play? I don't think you bring in Ryan Suter to sit him. I think he's going to be on that third pair with Matthew Kessel. And then you have Scott Prinovich, Tyler Tucker, and P.O. Joseph, the newcomer, who are going to battle for the rest of those roster spots.
What do you think happens with Perunovich? He's kind of a lightning rod for Blues fans and Hobie Baker Award winner, which is always talked about. So what do you think happens with him?
Yeah, I had a really good conversation with him probably a month and a half ago. He realizes that he has not lived up to his own expectations. He really wants to come in and have a good season. The thing is, if you don't show it and you don't give the Blues a reason to say, he's definitely coming in as that third pair left side guy, they got to go sign people. And they brought in Suter and they go out and get Broberg. And so now there's some competition there, which there always is going to be. But he's going to have to come in and I just think play better defensively, show that he can be steady, and get on the board. Like he said it himself. He goes, I just don't shoot it enough, and I have to shoot. I mean, who would have ever thought that Scott Perunovich in 2024, an offensive-minded defenseman baseman who won the Hobie Baker Award would still not have a goal in the NHL.
That's amazing. And if he had played like he had played and been healthy the whole time, he might not be here.
Right.
Right? He probably has the advantage of having been injured so much.
Yeah. If he would have put up some numbers, and they, the Blues would either like him or he would have been an asset and been able to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What do you think, like, when a couple years hits and Jake Neighbors is out there and Edmonton's got cap space? What do you think happens then?
Well, I did Edmonton radio last night, and that's what they brought up. They said, okay, so you ready for return fire here when the Oilers sign Neighbors to an offer sheet? The only thing is this. There's a reason they didn't sign Broberg and Holloway or match them when the Blues did the offer sheets, is because their cap space is so tight. So there's a lot of teams in the league that are up against the cap, but if there's one that really shouldn't be going out and overpaying to bring a guy to their team, it's the Edmonton Oilers with those contracts they have coming up.
And yeah, they have the Draisaitl contract coming up, and that'll be especially because of he's won an MVP. Not that he is as good as McDavid, but he might be the second best player in the league.
Yeah, he's going to get paid, and then you got McDavid in a couple years too.
Yeah, so and the defenseman too.
Yep,
so,
Bouchard.
Yeah, so they've got some money to spend there. They need to get, and they've got to find a goalie still.
But all that said, I think the Blues need to take care of Jake Neighbors at some point. I agree with Doug Armstrong before. Yeah, it's only 1 year, and I do believe that Jake Neighbors has a real good future here. You certainly don't want to get a situation where you're giving him an 8-year deal and then in 3 years you're regretting it. Mm-hmm. But I think he's that type of player that you can count on and be confident that he's going to have a good NHL future.
JR, we know that you have to get over to do are you doing the Last Minute Blues podcast?
Yeah, I'm going to head down the hallway and meet up with Alex and Donnie and do a pod here today.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
You guys too. Thanks.
That is Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider from The Athletic here on 101 ESPN. Coming up, will any MLB team reach 100 wins this year? We'll tell you next on 101 ESPN.
It's time for a DraftKings at Casino Queen Redbird report on 101 ESPN.
Cards take 2 against Brew Crew. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Redbird report. Yesterday's rubber match downtown went the way of host St. Louis. Cardinals blank Milwaukee 3-0 as Victor Scott II collects his first career 3-hit game. The rookie outfielder also scored after a bases-loaded walk to Wilson Contreras, which snapped a scoreless tie in inning number 7. Alec Burleson and Mason Wynn each added 2 hits apiece. Mound-wise, starter Miles Michaelis fired 6 scoreless frames, fanning 3. Ryan Helsley later earned that MLB-leading 39th save. This evening, STL hits Minnesota. Righty Andre Palante goes for Ali Marmol's club, while Twins youngster David Festa hurls first pitch at 7:10.
The Redbird Report is presented by DraftKings at Casino Queen. Play, stay, dine at DraftKings at Casino Queen.
Attention sports fans. Heading downtown to a professional baseball, hockey, or soccer game? Get 10% off your hotel stay at DraftKings at Casino Queen. Just present your game tickets at check-in or use promo code TICKETS24 when booking online. And there's more. Enjoy free shuttle service to and from all baseball and hockey games. No hassle, just fun. For more info or to book your stay, visit DraftKings at CasinoQueen.com. That's DraftKings at CasinoQueen.com. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Based on availability. Restrictions apply.
When you hear me partner with a company, it's always a local company. And one of my favorite local partnerships for over the years has been Chesterfield Fence and Deck. I bought my fence from Chesterfield Fence and Deck many years ago, got to know them, and then they started advertising on the station. And I know from firsthand experience they do great work, and they have in St. Louis for 56 years. If you want to get great work done by having a fence or a deck installed, maybe a sunroom or a screen room, get in touch with Chesterfield Fence and Deck at 800-300-4054 or find them on the web at chesterfieldfence.com. And you can stop by their beautiful facility in Chesterfield Valley, or you can have them come out to your house, and they'll take all the measurements. They'll show you different product ideas that they have, and they'll want your ideas, and then they can show you a photo gallery of jobs that they've done. So maybe you can get some ideas for things that you hadn't thought of that you can have applied to your job. Chesterfield Fence and Deck is absolutely fantastic. You can find them on the web at chesterfieldfence.com. Give them a call at 800-300-4054. And when you get in touch with them, mention this show and get 48 months interest-free financing. Chesterfield Fence and Deck, the sign you have the very best.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. Recapping the biggest sports stories of the day on the opening drive with a Rush Hour Reset.
9:10 in St. Louis. Time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. Danny Mac and Randy with you. And the Cardinals are back in action tonight, opening a 3-game series at Target Field in Minnesota against the Twins. As Bradford Bruns told you, it'll be Andre Palante, 5-6 with a 4.07 for the Cardinals. He'll be opposed by Minnesota's right-hander David Festa, who's 2-2 with a 4.96. The Cardinals winning their second in a row yesterday as they knocked off the Brewers by a score of 3-0. And Miles Michaelis was fantastic, Dan. He goes 6, allows 2 hits, walked 1, and struck out 3 in what is kind of the perfect Miles Michaelis start.
Yeah, typical for him at this point in his career. He's not going to go deep into games, but you got soft contact, you had some ground balls, and when you get that, you're having a chance to win. I wonder what you think about this. Do you think every start, and I guess you're always in a tryout when you're in professional sports, but do you think if you're Andre Palante, you go into these starts and you say, this is still a tryout for me. He's going to wind up being in the rotation this year, but is it a tryout for me for next year, or do you feel like as you watch the Cardinals, he's supplanted in being in the rotation a year from now?
For me, he would be in the rotation, and I think the Cardinals have given him enough runway for them to believe it too, and he's been good enough to stay in the rotation. As far as I'm concerned, and there's still, 35 games to go, he's probably got, 5 starts left. But he has shown me enough to be in the rotation in 2025. That being said, last year at this time, Zach Thompson had shown me enough that he was going to be in the rotation for 2024.
Yeah, I think Palante is, in my mind, he's in. And one of the things that'll make him even more of a favorite is that he's cost controlled. You're not going to have to pay him a lot. And the other part of this is that he's earned it. He's one of the only guys that I look at and saying he's going to go deep into a game. And that includes Sonny Gray right now, who Sonny Gray is going 5 innings. And so he's the one guy I look at, Palante, that gives you a chance to give you 6 or 7 innings from that starting rotation.
And cost controlled might be the most operative word for the Cardinals heading into 2025. They know what they're going to have to pay Sonny Gray. He's going to get $25 million next year. Got 10 this year. But they know what Michaelis is going to get. They know what Palante is going to get. They know what Matz is on the books for. From a lineup standpoint, they know what everybody is going to make, except for Helsley, I guess, who will be arbitration eligible for the most part. But I would think that the Cardinals, right now, as they look at what they're going to do for 2025, I would think that cost control is probably the most important thing they're looking at from their perspective.
Well, I think what's alarming for them is looking at the crowds that are coming out. What was it, just over 28,000 yesterday at the ballpark? And we're accustomed here in St. Louis to having 35, 40,000 night in and night out. That has to have an impact on what the bottom line looks like. So, to your point, Randy, maybe looking at cost-controlled players, which brings me to Goldschmidt. Not sure what he would get on the open market. We talked about maybe potentially Arizona, going back home, finishing his career there, although he calls St. Louis home now, and I mean literally. He lives here year-round. But you were talking about it earlier. My gut tells me he's coming back. And I know a lot of fans are curious about, what the Cardinals' mindset is. I don't know, man. I think he comes back. I think there's still value there. The role has got to change, but I do think there's value in bringing him back.
I do too, but not at $20 million. Roughly $21 million would be the most that they could cut him unless he went into free agency.
And the other thing is the role here in St. Louis, and would it be a multi-year deal? And I think it'd have to be a 2-year deal for wherever he goes. The cusp of being a Hall of Famer, and talked about this before too, but the Cardinals value legacy, and that would be a legacy player with an MVP under his belt, and also potentially going into the Hall of Fame as a Cardinal. And I think they truly value that, and it's important to them.
And he is a guy that talks to every young player on that team. There's leadership ability there. Hey, Dan, we haven't talked about Scott Service being fired. The Mariners are 5.5 games out in second place behind Houston in their division. They were 10 ahead earlier in the year, and with 25 games left, 5.5 behind Houston, they decided to fire Service. What did you think of that?
I was kind of shocked because historically it's never happened. He's the first manager in baseball history to have a 10-game lead in the division, then be fired before the end of the season. Mm-hmm. It's never happened before. I think that you give him the benefit of the doubt to try to right the ship. So I was shocked that happened. And they still, as you mentioned, have a chance at postseason play. Maybe we're not talking enough about what Houston has done.
Yeah.
Terrible start, and then playing some of the best baseball out there. They're going to be dangerous once again getting into postseason play.
Yeah, the Mariners, since the All-Star break, are 12-18, and they're 7-11 in August. So it's just kind of falling apart for them. And as you mentioned, on the other end of the spectrum, that's a Houston team. They were the ones that were 10 games behind, and it looked for all the world, because they lost most of their starting rotation, like they were going to fall apart. But Joe Espada and his staff have done a fantastic job of resurrecting their season, getting their rotation going. They're 19-12 since the break and 13-6 in August.
Let me throw this one at you, looking at some of the trends in baseball. MLB's 6 highest paid starting pitchers are making a combined $233 million, Randy. This year they have a combined 11 wins.
Wow.
11 wins for guys that are making $250 million.
That's an unbelievable stat.
That's amazing to me. And so it just shows that sometimes if you insert an Andre Palante or maybe one of these young guys, may work out than giving a guy $35 million a year, because it doesn't always work out. Now, there are some that would look at the Yankees and look at the Dodgers, and they can just throw money at a situation, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But in a place like St. Louis, the way that things are going right now, look at that trend in baseball and then take a look at cost control players that could be coming back. Might be a better value.
Great point. That's Dan. I'm Randy, and that's today's Rush Hour Reset. Coming up, usually we have a dominant team in baseball, but it doesn't appear we're going to have one this year. That's next on 101 ESPN. Folks, our friends at Together Credit Union just launched a brand new high-yield checking account called Empower Checking. And it's so cool because with Empower Checking, you earn above-market interest on the money you keep in your day-to-day checking account. Interest is paid to you each month. It's a checking account that rewards you for balances and not activity at Together Credit Union. To apply, it's very easy. All you need to do is go to togethercu.org or stop by any of their 14 area locations and work directly with one of their amazing member advocates. And when you get Empower Checking, don't forget you get that debit card too. If you get the City SC debit card, it's pretty cool as well. You get an opportunity to get 10% discounts on everything you purchase at City Park, plus express entry into City SC games with the official credit union of St. Louis City SC, Together Credit Union. Get paid to save with Empower Checking. Visit togethercu.org. Empower for full terms. That's togethercu.org/empower. For full terms and details, membership eligibility required. Together Credit Union, federally insured by the NCUA. Teams have 34, 35 games left in the 2024 Major League season. And the leading team in terms of wins so far this year is the Doyers with 76. Then the Junkies have 75, and the Phils and Orioles both have 74. Dan, most years we have a 100-win team. This year, it appears we won't. We won't have a 100-win team. It would appear for the first time since 2014.
I think it's good. That means there's more teams in the wild card, which is what baseball wanted, to keep teams and fan bases engaged. Boston, 3.5 in the wild card, are out of the wild card, but the National League, it is jumbled up. You got the Mets, game and a half back. Frisco is 4, Cardinals are 5, Chicago 5.5, Cincinnati 6.5. I think that's probably a good thing for baseball. But then I always look at like the Tiger Woods effect, or in this case, the Scotty Scheffler effect, where you have a dominant player, and in this case, we're talking about a dominant team, where sometimes you can't keep your eyes off those teams. You love seeing dominance in sports, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
And the Dodgers are that team, and they've only won one World Series. So that's almost the perfect storm for baseball, is to see them lose. Here's the other part of it. You mentioned teams being in the race, because for a long time in baseball, it was literally the haves and the have-nots. And one of the problems that you had in baseball was that you could be really smart and still not have a chance. You could just get bludgeoned by money. But you look at the teams now. We mentioned the Dodgers have 76 wins. Among the teams that have at least 71 wins are the Royals, the Twins, the Padres. That's a smaller market than St. Louis. The Milwaukee Brewers, the Cleveland Guardians, and the Baltimore Orioles. There are a lot of small markets whose teams have been more than competitive this year. Small markets similar to our market in St. Louis that have had really good teams this year, and not only are in the hunt, but all of those teams that I mentioned would be in the playoffs if they started today.
Do you like my idea, though, that, or at least what I stated before, that it's a good thing for baseball?
Yeah, it is.
I think it is. I think you keep fan bases engaged. You always use the term hope. It gives you hope. You go to the ballpark. If you're a Cardinal fan right now, it's been as frustrating of a season that you can remember, well, since last year. So it's a frustrating season, but you're hovering around 500. But if you go to the ballpark, you're still saying, well, the wild card is still within reach. You still have a chance. There's hope.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing to have in the game, in any sport.
And think of those franchises that I just listed. How many years have things been hopeless? And this is going back 30 years. But things have been hopeless for Milwaukee, hopeless for Arizona, hopeless for San Diego, hopeless for Minnesota, certainly hopeless for the Royals. There have been a lot of hopeless seasons for those franchises that now, because of the expanded playoff and because of revenue sharing and taking advantage of revenue sharing and building smart front offices, those teams not only have a chance to get to the playoffs, but as we've seen with Arizona last year, with the Washington Nationals several years ago, with the Philadelphia Phillies a couple of years ago. If you just make the playoffs, you have a chance.
Here's
you want to weigh in here, by the way?
Yeah, I just want to throw this out just because since we had the time frame of since 2014 to now, just would you guys think that 2014 to 2024 is a better or worse decade than 04 to 14 for baseball as in a wide scope?
I liked 04 to 14 better. But maybe that's because we went to 3 World Series.
And going to 3 of them.
But 4 of them, yeah.
And the reason I want to throw that out is because from 04 to 14, there were 4 total 100-win teams in baseball across those 10 years. 4 total. From 10 to 14, there was only 1 in that 5-year run. And now over the last 10 years, we've had at least 10 100-win teams. So I just looking at those 2 eras, it seems to me, and again, maybe it's biased because we're Cardinals fans, it seems to me that 04-14 was a better decade for baseball than the last decade has been. And I just wonder if this is correlation or causation, if these are actually connected or not.
I think a huge thing for baseball in that time frame, and I'll go back to the late 90s, but was having Boston and New York going back and forth with epic series. Those were epic series. Those were great names in the game. Individuals. That's the other part I think that we're kind of missing here. You have to have great individuals in the sport to make you as a fan watch. I mean, winning is part of it, but if you have great players, you're going to watch. I mean, that's just part of the deal with sports. If you have those that are exceptional and well above average, like for me, for instance, I would watch the Kansas City Royals because I want to watch Bobby Witt Jr. Now, are they my favorite team to watch across the board in the major leagues, and I watch a ton of baseball? No. But when he comes up, I'm going to sit there and watch.
And Dan, to that point, if we go back to that 04 to 14 area, and let's go back to 97 because you've brought this up many times. McGuire and his presence allowed the Cardinals to build a team. Well, you can't cherry pick anymore because of revenue sharing. The Cardinals were able to get Darryl Kyle because, number one, he was pitching terrible for Colorado, but they didn't feel like they could afford him. Why did they get Edgar Renteria? Because Miami definitely couldn't afford him. The Angels decide, we can't afford to keep Jimmy Edmonds around. Scott Rowland turns down $140 million from Philly because he wants so badly to play in St. Louis and signs here for $90. Peter Gammons always said the Cardinals have $100 million team, but they're paying $80 million for it.
Yeah.
And they were able to cherry pick teams because teams couldn't afford to keep players around. Well, now with revenue sharing, ultimately, Andrew McCutchen left Pittsburgh, but they signed him and gave him a big contract before. It worked out horribly for Tampa, but they were able to sign Wander Franco to that big contract. Same thing, not to the same level, but because of revenue sharing, that's why Miami was able to sign Stanton to the big contract that they gave him. Those players would have been traded before they ever got a contract with their new team before, and the Cardinals took advantage of a lot of those under Walt Jocketty.
And the model is not the same.
No, you can't do that now.
You just cannot do that. So you better draft and develop, and you better hit on some of these draft picks, which is allowing, to your point, I think some of the lesser teams, smaller markets compete because if you draft well and develop, you have a chance to compete with the big boys.
Yeah. By the way, one other guy, remember when the Cardinals during the 02 season, I think it was, they loved Chris Carpenter, and Mike Matheny went to Chris Carpenter and said, you should come here. And he did.
Yeah.
They signed him for the minimum, but he knew because another player went to him and said, this would be a great spot for you. And because of that advice, Carp wound up coming to St. Louis.
And sometimes you got to catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
Like a Stephen Kwan, or some of these guys that you hear about that you knew were in the league, but they got a different, whether they come back as a different swing, they come back as different players, maybe a change of scenery. That is the other way that you can allow. But listen to what I'm saying, though. These guys don't cost that much.
Right.
That's the difference.
And the interesting thing is, while the fans that we're talking about of smaller market teams still have hope, the Dodgers and Yankees still are the teams with the most wins. So they should be happy, too.
Absolutely. And they're going to spend the most money. They're going to get the best players, and that's how you win.
And Philadelphia's third in wins, by the way.
Yeah.
That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up here on 101 ESPN, if the Braves do collapse with all their injuries, who's best positioned to take advantage? That's coming your way on 101 ESPN.
This is Rocky with your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. The Cardinals win their series against the Brewers yesterday. They'll go for a third game in a row tonight against the Twins. 7:10 first pitch as they start this series. It'll be Andre Palante facing off against David Festa for the Twins. Festa, the righty for the Twins, is 2-2 on the season with a 4.96 ERA through 33 innings pitched so far. St. Louis City SC back in action tomorrow night. They face off against the Portland Timbers in the MLS restart. 9:30 kickoff in that game. If you want to hear more talk about St. Louis City SC, you can go to the Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers podcast later today as Danny and Randy talked it over with MLS analyst Miguel Gallardo. That is your Sports Center update, driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
I think they still have a chance, believe it or not, because the team they're trying to run down, the team everyone's trying to run down, I think they're at a breaking point. I think the Atlanta Braves are at a breaking point. There's just too many injuries. The Austin Riley broken hand is a backbreaker to this team. I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance for the Mets, the Giants, and the Cardinals to run them down.
That's Greg Amsinger with us yesterday here on 101 ESPN. Dan, I can see a collapse by the Braves. I will not be surprised. I mean, they've lost their two best hitters in, if you want to call Olsen, if you don't want to, two of their three at least in Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna. They've lost their best starting pitcher in Spencer Strider. They've had injuries throughout. They could absolutely collapse. Although they're tough. They've got Chris Sale. They've got some good things left still there, and a great manager in Brian Snitker. But I won't be surprised if the Braves collapse. Will you?
No, I wouldn't be. I'd be more concerned about the Giants in this situation than anybody else, which includes the Cardinals, and he mentioned St. Louis. But the Giants pitching has a chance to be dangerous down the stretch and really dangerous in postseason play. With the way that Snell has bounced back and the way that he has pitched for the Giants, I think that's first and foremost. And when I think of the Mets, MVPs a lot of times are won in August and September. Don't sleep on what Francisco Lindor is doing for that team. He has been awesome for the Mets.
MVP candidate.
And again, like I said, they're won in August and September, and he has been awesome for the Mets. So that's another team I look at.
Okay, so if we're going to include the Cardinals mathematically, they're 5 back in the wild card, then I think we have to include the Cubs mathematically. The Cubs' remaining road series: 3 against Miami, 3 against Colorado, 3 against Oakland. They have 7 against Washington. They have 6 against the Pirates and 3 against Cincinnati. They also have the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Phillies. That's 9 of their games. But 3, 6, 9, 16, 22, 25 games against Miami, Colorado, Oakland, Washington, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. That's the kind of schedule that even a team like the Cubs could go on a run against.
100%. They're 5.5 out in the wild card. I was looking at the same thing. As you look at strength of schedules, the Cardinals' strength of schedule is a gauntlet. But I was looking at the Cubs as well as you did in preparation for this segment. They got a shot.
4th easiest schedule.
They got a shot. And when you're talking about those teams initially, I look at them winning 6 of 9. And sometimes when you get that momentum, it carries over into bigger series. And so that is something to watch out for, that the Cubs would have a chance, and they have a good manager. That's the other thing, is Craig Counsell maybe can get the best out of this team, which he did with Milwaukee in stretch runs, and this is why you pay a guy $40 million to come in and at least give your team a shot. And it's something to behold because of what they did at the trade deadline, giving up some pretty good players, and here they are right in the thick of it.
And they did make in trading Morel for Paredes, that was a baseball trade for the Cubs now and in the future, and I think they improved themselves there. And they added some bullpen pieces.
How did the Cardinals get through this schedule? Now, they just took 2 of 3 against Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But you have San Diego, you got Minnesota this weekend. Minnesota 2 games back in the American League Central. No one talks about them. A lot of focus has been on Cleveland because they're a small market team and the way that they played. I don't know, Randy. With
New York against the Yankees.
Yes, and then you got Minnesota, or rather Milwaukee again.
Yeah.
That's a tough schedule.
It's going to be tough. I'm with you on the Giants. I wonder if we kind of respect the names on the back of the jerseys too much there, because Robbie Ray really hasn't been great for them. Logan Webb has not been what he was last year for them. Snell has been sensational, and they're kind of like the Cardinals in that the people that were supposed to hit for them haven't hit for them. And they have a nice back end of the bullpen with Duvall. He's really good. But to me, if they're going to win in San Francisco, they need Robbie Ray to be great.
100%. I mean, he's the guy that they've got to count on, and you do make a very good point. I mean, the names on the back of the jerseys. From a Cardinals fan perspective, we talked about all these teams that are so good. The Cardinals that they'll face, the Cardinals are 30-33 against teams that are above 500. 500 or better. They're 3 games under. And you've mentioned this a bunch, Randy. 2 straight wins, trying to make it a third, has been hard to come by. Really hard to. So for them, and I think we did the numbers, maybe you did the numbers earlier. For them, they'd have to go, 24-11, something like that, in their remaining games, and if somebody goes 500.
If Atlanta plays 500, yeah.
Tough to catch them.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, they did have that stretch. They 32 games, or a 50-game stretch where they went 32-18. But that was a different team, too, than the one we're watching right now.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see how it plays out.
Yep. So, by the way, strength of schedule the rest of the way. We mentioned the Cubs have the 4th easiest. And it's interesting that these teams that are, Rick Horton refers to them as being basically a division. And I think that's an interesting way to look at it. But the division includes Atlanta, St. Louis, let me get the rest. Atlanta, the Mets, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Cubs. That's the division right now that is separated by a total of 5.5 games.
And you don't have head-to-heads.
No.
That's how you make up, if you got a distance between teams in your division, or in this case, like a division like the wild card, the way that you get and gain ground is the head-to-heads and taking and sweeping a series. All of a sudden, you've gained 3 games. I just don't see that happening.
Giants with the 3rd toughest schedule left in baseball. Arizona's in good shape. They have the 5th toughest schedule left. And then the Mets, Cardinals 8th, Mets 9th toughest schedule. And then we mentioned that the Cubs have the 4th easiest schedule remaining. That's Dan. I'm Randy. Coming up, we're going to head down the stretch with a little edition of Rock and Roll here on 101 ESPN.
rock. Let's rock today.
It is time for Rock and Roll. Matthew, what do you got for us?
Well, every morning we get to hear a little bit of our friends over at the national side with Unsportsmanlike, and one of our very good friends, Michelle Smallman, was off a little bit there, but she is back on. She's on with Freddie Coleman this morning as Cohen and Canty have been out. In the last 2 days, they have gotten into a little NFL talk. As some of you who listen to that program may or may not know, Michelle's doing a very funny bachelorette thing where she's trying to pick her new NFL team. I guess she's moved on from the Dolphins, obviously. And so she's doing this whole bachelorette thing. She's got the roses. They're doing videos. It's a very fun little shtick they've got going. And that has engendered a lot of NFL conversation and a lot of people asking her about her fandom. Well, yesterday she went on a little bit of rant about the Rams, and today was no different as caller Gus got on the phone on Unsportsmanlike. He opened it up by saying he's from Illinois and then questioned whether or not Michelle should call herself a St. Louisan because she's also from Illinois. So that put him on a bad start with Michelle. Here's the meat of the conversation where she got into her issues with the Rams and Gus's issues with her basically blacklisting the Rams.
Are you in a relationship?
Uh-oh. Oh, absolutely married.
Okay. So you're married to someone who I'm sure that you love and adore. If that person cheated on you and then went all over social media saying, Gus is the worst, Gus is disgusting, no one will ever be able to have a successful marriage with Gus, and no one should even try. I'm so glad that I got away from Gus, and you should be pumped for me that I got away too. And then your ex goes on and marries somebody else. Are you going to get back together with that person?
Well, that ex left my city, so I'm probably not going to get back with her.
Okay. So you understand where I'm coming from, Gus.
Gus walked into a buzzsaw, and he thought he had her because his big thing was like, well, the Rams still exist. Like the Cleveland Browns got destroyed and became the Ravens. The Rams still exist, so you could still be a Rams fan. And it was like, oh, Gus, you're not getting the point here. She then went into breaking down about how pretty much a court of law has decided that the way that the Rams and the NFL left St. Louis was dirty, based on the millions of dollars that we're not spending that were handed to us in that lawsuit. And Gus walked into a buzzsaw, and they put the clip on Twitter, and Twitter is going insane of this clip of Michelle tearing down Gus.
Are they in support of her? Or?
There's a lot of people who are like, yeah, listen, the NFL was dirty in St. Louis, and this is a good analogy. This is a good way to put a person in place. There are a lot of people who are really weird and do not understand the metro area thing. There are a lot of people who are like, why does this Illinois person keep saying that she's from St. Louis? And I just think that's people who are on the coasts who just don't understand how a metro area works, and how people in Illinois are part of St. Louis because of where they live within that little circle. I think it just confuses people. So there's a lot of people who are harping on her for that.
I guess it would be the same concept as New Jersey and New York. A lot of people who live in New Jersey that work in New York City. Maybe that's the way it needs to be explained.
Randall, help me out with this if you can.
Yes, I'll do my best.
So the relocation money, do we have any idea what's going on with that?
They were having a vote in the city as to how to utilize it. I think they were talking about safety and roads and stuff like that. They were actually, they had a bunch of different ideas in the city as to how to utilize the Rams money.
And dome renovations, maybe?
I think that would be smart, especially since the city did hire a consultant that said the dome will require at least $150 million to bring it up to minimum standards. If the building and the team that housed the building that housed the team that gave you the money is in need of repairs, I would think that the money generated from said team in that building should probably be used to try to upgrade the facility.
Yeah, I would say so. I would imagine Michelle gets some backlash, too, with her take on the Rams from a national perspective, because not a lot of people know what happened here.
But I think that's why she tacked on the very end of her call in a very, very well, obviously, this is why she's good at her job. She tacked on the part about the lawsuit and the fact of, like, you can't even just say that this is St. Louis people, being, babies or being a little soft-skinned about the NFL leaving. It's like a court of law gives you restitutions for wrongdoing. That's what happened. The court of law said the NFL and Stan Kroenke went against their own regulations, and then you tack on the facts that
the league said that.
The league.
When you pay somebody $790 million, you're admitting wrongdoing.
Exactly. when you have to settle out from the court settlement because you don't want to be under oath, you know what you're saying, and then you tack on the other facts, which is the comments that Kroenke made on his way out when you just trash the city. And I think there are a lot of reasonable national fans who when you give them those facts, they understand that St. Louis is angry. There are a lot of people who will stand there and say, well, you took them from L.A. in the first place. Why are you whining about anything?
Let's see, 618, as a Metro Illinois resident, when you travel, if you say you're from Illinois, they think you're from Chicago. I generally say I'm from St. Louis.
That's what I always thought was a sensible thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, do you sit there and say Luther Burden's Metro East, our own Metro East Luther Burden's?
No. And I believe he grew up in St. Louis. I don't know if he ever actually lived in Illinois.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's almost like these imaginary lines just kind of only mean something every once in a while. Just like, I mean, you live 5 minutes from the Arch. You live in St. Louis. Who cares? Yeah. I don't understand what people's issue is here. By the way, if you live in Belleville, what's the closest big city? All right, there it is. Conversation's over.
Yeah, pretty simple. Hey, did you guys see, by the way, that Channel 4 is starting an all-sports channel called
I did see that.
Matrix Midwest, and they're going to have pre- and post-game for the Mizzou Tigers. They've worked with Learfield and with Mizzou, so they're going to have pre- and post. They aired the Chiefs game last night. It's channel 32. It's regular channel 32 with your digital antenna. And it's channel 186 on Spectrum. But they're going to do a lot of sports stuff, and it'll be cool. And I would think, Dan and Matthew, that might be a soft pillow to land on if, for whatever reason, Bally Sports isn't around. With Arizona, same company that owns the channels that show the Diamondbacks and the Suns games. It's Gray Broadcasting. They set the All Sports channel up in the Phoenix area, and they're the same ones that are building the channel here. I think it'd be a really good idea for both the Cardinals and the Blues to take a look at this, if indeed Bally isn't around for them anymore.
I guess the question I would have is, where do the rights fees come in? Because they're not going to get the rights fees that Bally's paying. No. I mean, it's an exorbitant amount of money. How does that work? And then the other thing is, though, you got to get it on something that is accessible to fans. I mean, there's a lot of fans. The average age of a baseball fan is older than soccer, certainly, basketball, hockey. So you got to make it accessible for these older fans to understand where to find the game.
Well, and the owners, there's a couple of things. Number one, that's one of the great things about something like this, where it would be actually literally on free TV, in addition to cable, but Channel 32. But the other part of it is that I look at is, if you are the Cardinals and you, for example, the Rams made a lot of money. Let me put it in these terms. The Rams made a lot of money without getting a rights fee from 101 ESPN when they were here. They sold their own product. They produced their own product, but it wound up being a profitable venture for them. I don't know if the Cardinals want to do that anymore. Bud Sports used to be the producer for Cardinal baseball, but they do it on the radio side now.
Yeah.
So I would think that you could produce and sell TV and then just have a barter agreement with, I'm just talking inside baseball here, have a barter agreement with the vehicle that actually shows your games. I would think that would be something that would be possible for the Cardinals and the Blues.
Well, the Cardinals are so dependent on fans in the seats, more so than other teams around Major League Baseball. The other thing I look at because of that is that it has to be like a free commercial. So you're promoting all the different things you have at the ballpark. You got, this is going to be banner day. There's bat day. Here's glove day. Come down and meet this particular player, whatever. But you have to use it as a vehicle to promote. 100%. And so that's why you need to be on free TV of some sort. If you don't have Bally's and you don't know where to find the games, that's a problem. But if you have it on free TV, you're exposing your product to a lot more eyeballs and a lot more fans.
And if you have a product, if you're the 30 owners, you have to go to Rob Manfred and say, okay, eliminate all blackouts. If you have a product
100%, yeah.
and then you don't allow people to buy your product, that's kind of stupid. So, for example, if you're in Iowa, you can't get Cards and Cubs games with MLB.TV, or White Sox if you wanted to watch that train wreck. But there's got to be a scenario where wherever you are, if you want to watch Cardinal baseball on your phone, you can watch it.
I need, every time Iowa gets brought up, I need to point out that the 6 teams that they are geographically closest to the state of Iowa are all blacked out in the state of Iowa.
Yep.
You can't watch Twins, Brewers, White Sox, Cubs, or Cardinals. I can't remember what the 6th team is, but I know there's
Royals?
a 6th team. It might be Royals. All 6 of those teams are blacked out in the state of Iowa. What the hell? Like, how do you just say to an entire state of baseball fans, get effed?
Brad Thompson's dad in Las Vegas can't watch any of the West Coast games. He's got MLB.TV, can't watch A's, Giants, Padres, Dodgers, Angels. Can't watch any of them.
How about in Tennessee? Big Cardinal country, that's a problem too.
That's ridiculous.
There's blackouts there. I think it's ridiculous that if I'm on my phone, I can't watch the game when I'm on a golf course.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I don't know why or how this benefits their business, but if I were the owners, again, I would get together next time I have a meeting and say, okay, because all of them are being hurt by this. They're being penalized by this rule. I'd say, okay, Rob, we love you, but let's get rid of the blackouts. Yep. Even Greg says, we got to get rid of the blackouts.
It's the biggest problem in the sport.
Yeah, it really is. Great job today by our producer, audio, video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. Thank you.
Pleasure. And is it fair to say that when the NFL got rid of blackouts, that was a huge part in them in their popularity taking off?
Yeah, huge part of it. It's funny, back in the 70s, the place that is now the Santa Fe Cafe up here on Olive, and before that it was Irish place that had great wings. I don't even remember.
You just remember the wings.
Culpeppers.
Yeah.
But it was called Clancy's, and it was owned by Bill Bidwell when the Cardinals were here, and they got fined for showing football Cardinal games that were blacked out in town.
Tell me the NFL,
really?
Yeah, Bidwell's own bar.
NFL ended their blackout policy in 2015. Tell me the league hasn't been better over the last 9 years because of it.
It was they've showed
the full 100% no blackout policy across streaming and everything like that was 2015. I think they ended the local one in like 09 or 08.
Way better.
And it's been so much better for them.
It used to be that every game, even if you sold it out 3 days in advance, every game was blacked out. And then they changed it to it's got to be sold out 3 days in advance, and then they kind of loosened the strings a little bit.
So we're saying get rid of the blackouts.
Yeah, blackouts are unnecessary.
Yep.
Daniel, you're awesome. Great job today.
You too,
brother.
buddy.
Boom.
Thanks for having me be a part of your show and Matthew's show and our show. Yeah. So I said our show.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
We just did a virtual fist bump. We didn't because we're like 7 feet away from each other, but we did a virtual fist bump.
And have a great weekend, guys.
You too. We've got a balloon party coming up with T-Mac and Ajax, BK and Ferrario from 11 to 2, and then the Fast Lane from 2 to 6. We thank you for tuning in, texting in, and being a part of this show. For all of us, until Monday morning at 7, don't just have a great weekend. Have an American weekend.